that when you had that type of flexibility. Here we're trying to make fish survive in a goldfish bowl, but we keep putting marbles in there with it. And it's just not going to work out. Let's just be real about this. We got limitations with trying to satisfy everyone. If this was day one and someone walked in this room and said, I want to build a structure at that site, and I'm going to serve alcohol at that site, I don't think we would have had any hesitation in saying no. And we would have been done with this situation. You know, now it's more like we're trying to turn straw into gold. And I'm saying, let's stop wasting our time and beating ourselves up with this. It's just not going to work. So let's just keep the time limit short. Not going to make everybody happy, but we got limitations on just how far we can go. Now, if we want to just keep beating ourselves up on this, I can't stop you. I just won't participate in it. I think I'm going to make up my mind. This is what I think is logical, and just stick with it. So we can carry this on into Christmas, St. Valentine's Day this year. I don't think we're going to find a miracle. Extending out time for alcohol in an area that's close to residential is just not going to work out for everyone. And if anybody in here has the magic solution, then you are wasting your skills. Thank you.
Councilmember Robertson, Councilmember Bailey, Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The ordinance looks great, and I think what I'm hearing is I think basically it's a blanket ordinance, but in reference to satisfying or addressing a community need, it's very simple. Like some of the colleagues said, if we could maybe add the amendment less than 100 feet from a house, you can't do it less than when you're so close to a residential area. That's a quick fix, I would think. So I think we're moving in the right direction. We do hear the community, and we are trying to be responsive. And I think we can add some additional language and move forward. I yield, Madam Mayor.
I'll go to Councilmember Renee, she hasn't spoken yet, then I'll go to Councilmember Bailey. Councilmember Butler hasn't spoken? No. I'll go to Councilmember Butler, Councilmember Renee, and Councilmember Bailey. Go ahead, Councilmember Butler.
Thank you. I have a question. How long, Mr. City Attorney, the problem business right now is under a consent agreement with the court? And right now they have to close at 11. How far are they in the process, and how long will they be closing at 11?
So they were under a consent agreement, but now it is an order because our judge has signed it. So they're under a court order. They did send me a rough draft bullet point on their security plan. I've asked them to look at the City of New York's nightclub/restaurant ordinance for the best practices. It's a 318-page document that I've utilized, and I think it will help them give us what we need. Until they've done that and it's been approved by the police chief and the fire chief, the expectation is that they're going to remain closing at 11 o'clock.
The restaurant Spondivits that my colleague spoke about, they require, or they have valet parking, is that correct?
No, sir. Well, they do. They do. Down at the bottom, they do. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Renee.
You know, when the residents came, when we had a meeting with the residents and when they came to the city council meeting, one thing I thought that rang really clear is that these communities are looking for tranquility, haven of peace, and a place to escape the outside world. And that's in their homes, to be protected and have the security that they need. The problem is, as we all see it, as these bars, when they stay open this late, they don't provide the solace that residents are asking for, and especially when they purchase their homes. So they feel in a way violated, and they're up all night with the loud music and the security issues that they're having in their communities. And I think that we do owe them an opportunity to have the peace that they're paid for. So I think closing at 1 o'clock, maybe last call at 12. We're talking about East Point is a bedroom community that's crowded with families. And that's what we really are been striving for. And we don't want to run off good families for a few bad apples. So if we can adjust this, I'm in total agreement and with adjusting it, roll it back to 1 a.m., last call at 12 o'clock. And so that means that by the time they leave Atlanta, we're already closed and drinks are already poured. So, and I think that will probably meet the needs for everyone, especially on Saturday, Friday night and Saturday night. I just think that residents, their voices should be heard in this matter. I can't imagine the loud music and the craziness, because a lot of days I work on Saturdays, and some other people do as well. And so they're looking for that peace. So I appreciate this ordinance and I thank you for it. I just think that if we just tweak it just a little bit, I think we're on point. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Are we able to add that language for if a resident, a restaurant is within a certain amount of feet of a resident? Are we able to do that and we're not liable or will incur liabilities because of it?
We can, municipalities are allowed to put in time frames and things of that nature. I think we'd be able to, we can't stop anyone from suing us, but I think we'd be able to certainly be successful in something of that sort. So what language are you thinking?
I think that other council members said it before, but perhaps when I think about the impact of the different restaurants that are currently in operation with no problems, it appears, as far as the ones that I know about in Ward B, that perhaps changing the hours based on the distance that particular restaurant selling alcohol, based on the distance that they are between the restaurant and the residents, the neighborhoods. So I don't know what that distance would be, but just considering that, because I know Spondivits is very lively, and to close that restaurant at 1, I think it would be very impactful to that business. And I don't think we have any issues with Spondivits, and same thing with Cheers.
Anything else, Councilmember Bailey?
That's it.
Councilmember Shropshire.
Thank you. That brings me to this. So there's already a ordinance. So basically it would be just like what's already in there when it comes to convenience stores being in residential neighborhoods. And they can't sell alcohol. They have to be so many feet away from the house. From a home. They can't sell alcohol. So I think putting that in there will help, but it also will not fix the problem that's brewing with another one downtown. So you have to put something in place that's gonna fix the problems. Because if every other restaurant downtown is closing it too, then you're still leaving that main one out. So maybe we need to look at the districts and what the businesses are in, because I'm hearing Spondivit is not near homes, is more like your hotel district. So that's where your hotels are gonna go. That's tourism. They're gonna go there. You don't want to hurt that and you don't want to stop that. But at the same time, we have to figure out how to fix the problems in the neighborhood. So by maybe looking at the districts and putting something in place that can help better fix the problem. Now, I'm for them closing at 12 o'clock in a residential neighborhood. But what do we do about the other potential problem? Because then that leaves them out. They'll still be open. So we have to fix that one as well.
The consent order is temporary. We don't know when it will expire, but it will expire. And when it does, currently on our ordinance, I think it's what, 4:55 a.m., 5 o'clock in the morning. That's way too late. We're not Vegas, and we're not trying to invite the nightlife. We don't have like nightclubs licensed in our city. This is supposedly a restaurant, and the ones that have been challenging before, it's the same thing. This is like the third time. Um, and it's not about particular establishments. Unfortunately, because we have not put an ordinance in place, it manifests itself when we have bad actors under current ordinances, where maybe there are other businesses that are good actors. I think I appreciate James Kogowski. Did I say your last name correct? No, but James G. I'll say James G. For sending information about other cities. It was Atlanta, Brookhaven, and Clarkston. And the Atlanta AJC article was from 2003. And what I found very interesting in the article that James shared is that it indicated that at that time, the Gonzalski, there we go, James Gonzalski, that at that time, the last call time in East Point was 2 a.m. So my question is, how did we get from 2 a.m. then to like 5 a.m. now? When was the ordinance changed and why? And that's just from perspective. It's critically important that we listen to our residents. This is not complicated. It is not something that cannot be solved. It is something that there's absolutely a solution for. There's something that we might need to look at immediate, midterm, and long range like solutions, but an immediate thing that can be done is changing the time in the ordinance. It is not complicated. It is not. Like, who wants to live right next door within 100 feet of a quote unquote restaurant that has people drinking till 4 o'clock 5 o'clock in the morning and impacting their quality of life? There's something that we can do about that now. And it doesn't take forever. And it's something that can definitely be solved. The question is, what's the distance? What distance do we want to use? This is not about any particular business. I think these concerns have manifested themselves, or the issues or things that we need to address have manifested themselves because of situations that have happened. But what is the distance? Is it 100 feet? Is it 150 feet? Is it 50 feet? Whatever that distance is. And I think, when we talk about some businesses, they're over in a hotel district. There's not residential close to some of the businesses that were listed. And so I think we always have to lead with people, and we have to prioritize the quality of life of the residents in this city, who are the people they're our supervisors. They're people who elect us. They're the people we report to. And we have to lead with that and come up with a way that, yes, addresses all of it holistically, but we're not different. The cities around us are doing 2 a.m. We're having this conversation because our ordinance at some point went from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. It's too late. And we don't want to start inviting other businesses to our city, especially in their residential areas, for that. Do we want to make it 3 o'clock or some other time if it's not in a residential area? I mean, those are things that can be discussed. But this is absolutely something that can be solved. And there's absolutely a solution that we can come up with. And it should not take 90 days. It should not take past December to figure this out. Ideally, it would have been great to be able to resolve this on Monday, on the 20th. But it sounds like there are a lot of concerns that have been raised or questions that have been asked that we need to solve for. But it's not something that we should be deliberating on at length, because it is absolutely solvable. And it is something, again, that we had in the past. 2 a.m. That was an article from 2003. So East Point has had a 2 a.m. We have people in downtown East Point. We do have residents. We have condos in downtown East Point that are being negatively impacted by people who are downtown at 5 o'clock in the morning, operating from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. and having all of this traffic and all of this congestion, and they're not able to sleep. Residents in Center Park have talked about the impact on their quality of life and them not being able to sleep, the concerns, the park. I mean, there are a whole number of issues, which brings to mind also the need to look at having no parking on this side of the street where there are fire hydrants on Dunlap in this area because of the congestion in Center Park. So we talked about that as well. But there are things that we can do, and we should do them as with a sense of urgency and as expediently as possible. But haste makes waste, so I'm not suggesting that we really rush through it, but it should not take 60, 90 days to come up with a solution for this. We don't know when that consent order is going to be complied with, such that the 11 o'clock closing time is not permanent. Whenever that happens, it's going to go back to what it currently exists now. And so I'm not sure, there's a concern about ex post facto laws, and I get that, but the businesses, I think, in our city, and Ms. Smith, I think business licenses under you, do they have to renew their licenses annually, or is it every 2 years? So annually, business licenses come up for renewal annually. So when this law goes into effect, any business that gets a license renewed after that, or a new license, would be under the new ordinance. And so I'm hopeful that we will be able to address this with a sense of urgency and expediency, but not in a hasty manner, and not consider those things that we need to consider. But this is absolutely solvable, and it is within our reach. City Attorney, I indicated I was going to come back. Okay, Councilmember Shropshire, and then I'll go to the City Attorney Williams.
Thank you. So I think if we change the time and put it in place, because you're right, we don't know when the consent order is going to end, and we can always come back and look at the overall ordinances again, that where we can look at the district and how we want to put things in place. But as for now, if we could just change the time on it, if that's the consensus of everybody changing the time, I'm for it. And we can go ahead on and get this moving, because at the end of the day, the residents are feeling a lot of pain. And we need to take away some of that so they can have peace in their neighborhood. Because I said it before, that restaurant will be gone, but those neighbors will still be here. And if we don't put something in place now, what stops other restaurants from coming here trying to do the same thing? So if we could get the time change and move forward with it, I'm for it. Thank you.
Attorney Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree. These people, this neighborhood, this community does need some relief. However, that relief does not come in the fashion of, as the mayor said, being hasty. If we implement a time change now, for example, I think everybody knows that there are some businesses over on White Way that has condos on top of them or under them. They're going to be impacted by this potentially. And I don't know how you put this in place without affecting them unless they voluntarily bring themselves into that type of compliance. For example, if the ordinance says you close at 12, but you must have your last call at 11:30, that only backs some of them up by maybe an hour, hour and a half, but then there are others that are probably going to be backed up more. It may be better served if um, this body considers that entertainment district that I've heard some mention. It could or could not mirror the downtown overlay, because I think you have some of the same targeted areas in there. But I genuinely believe that, I mean, certainly this body is very intelligent, but if you do what you're intent upon doing with respect to backing it up to 12, the unintended results of other businesses that could be impacted might cause concern for them, as I've heard from some of you. I just don't know how to resolve that without looking deeper into it and trying to see if there's some option of doing that overlay district or entertainment district.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. Keith Thiem mentioned it when the residents came, and I talked about it as well, an entertainment district for downtown. So let me be clear, though, that the ask for the community is not 12 o'clock across the board. It's 12 a.m. within a certain distance. And whether it's the overlay district or we really look at the distance from residential, because the businesses in downtown where we would possibly consider an entertainment district, like the residential is probably further than 100 feet. Like the closest residential is on Church Street from downtown, from Main Street.
You're not referencing, you said outside of those residences that are connected to the business.
Well, they're not connected to the business, but you're right. Those condos are right behind. I forgot about.
Right.
We have 4 condos right behind in our downtown square right now, and they are right behind there. Right. So, Chairs is in downtown. I think that's the only business there. Oh, and Rich and Poor. So we have 2.
And ours, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, Eyes closes at
They
like
close
11
pretty
o'clock.
early, though.
Yeah, they're not open late. So yes, I forgot about those condos. So that is possibly the reason for an entertainment district, especially in downtown, and especially as we're bringing more residences, more residential in downtown. And so if that requires, though, even talking about that might move up something that I was thinking more longer term or immediate term to being considered now. Like we need to be having that conversation about the entertainment district now, because I also don't think that will take 60 or 90 days, right? Like if we're going to create an entertainment district or downtown overlay district or whatever we're calling it, we need to be looking at that. But the ask is not 12 o'clock across the board. It is for near residential, which is what Hateville does. And then 2 a.m. if it's not. And whether we want to change that 2 a.m. time, we can, but extending it too far makes us, again, Vegas in areas where people aren't doing that. It's not even like we're different from Atlanta. I mean, the discussion in 2003, I think Atlanta was maybe at 2 or 2:30. Clarkston went to 2 a.m. And there was one other city that we got an article sent on. And so this isn't something that is New Brookhaven. This isn't, we're like probably the only city in the area, maybe even in Fulton County, that allows it this late. And so, if we had to immediately start there, that would be a place to start. I'm hopeful that we could start with the distance from residential, along with those businesses that are not like having that conversation in the same and having those those provisions changed in the same ordinance, as well as looking at the entertainment district to address downtown East Point. It'll be probably downtown East Point in the hotel area over by on Virginia Avenue in the Aerotropolis district as well. And so, you know, we definitely need to have this on our work session agenda next month. We need to, you know, have some discussion on those options, and hopefully we can do something in December. This haste does make waste, but I think that we can act with a sense of urgency that doesn't have us belaboring this for months on end. Councilmember Renee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also wanted to remind everyone that, remember, we're building the commons right across from downtown. And so with that, you know, entertainment, you also have to be impacted that there's going to be more than 4 condos that will, you know, be impacted. However, when you think about this, you know, in our travels, a lot of times we already know that restaurants and bars do close before 2 a.m. And I think that it will be okay and be acceptable. And I do know that the average age in the city of East Point and downtown Atlanta is 35 years old. And one of the biggest complaints that we get why young people are moving, they're looking for a little bit more excitement in the night, you know, the nighttime district. So, but our number one priorities is the families that we house here. And so, you know, they're the ones who are looking for safe havens and a place to escape from the pressures of the world. So I think, you know, when we take a look at this ordinance, just make sure that we're also mindful that the commons, we're building the commons, and it's a residential, it will be residential mixed use place. So let's keep that in mind as well. But I just think the time limit, like, I think everybody's in agreement to roll back the time. I don't think that nobody's here is like, we're going to keep it open to the status quo, what we have on the books. But I think we also just need to be mindful that we're bringing in a whole new different vibe for the commons downtown. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I yield.
All right, so December work session, and we need information on the entertainment district as well as the distances, the distance from residential for those places that are near or businesses that want to come and be in residential areas, as well as businesses that are not near residential. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Next up. That's all I was talking about, the residential entertainment district. Next up, Councilmember Robertson, and then I'm gonna go to 41, 42, and 43 before we go to the next page.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This should be brief. We've discussed already some of the movements we're doing in the ARC Green Communities Initiative. And one of the things we wanted to do is provide some relief for our staff, our employees. And we wanted to partner with MARTA so we can have some type of incentives for people to park their cars and take the train to work. It relieves a lot of stress sometimes too when you get out of that traffic, and it helps out your mental well-being and as well as transportation. I've talked to my deputy city manager a while ago, and we talked about there will be an amendment that will be need to made to the budget. I think it's under about $10,000. Is that right, Ms. Janice? About 9,000 to help incentivize the employees to get to work. And I think also as we brought in the compression piece of incentivizing our employees and getting them more money, our new employees, we should offer maybe a MARTA card or something. But this is the right way to go to continue to make the city green. As we just talked earlier, we're trying to sometimes attract younger people here to our city. They jump on the train, and sometimes to go out, hang out, to shop, to buy things. So for our employees, this adds a phenomenal relief package, and MARTA has a incentive that is just at no cost. So we want to just look at that so we can provide that relief. There's an ordinance that will go with this, and then there are the benefits. I yield. You can review that and we'll put it on the city council meeting next time if everyone is in approval of it.
Councilman Brooks has a question, and then which agenda are you asking for it to be moved to?
The next city council meeting.
November 20th?
Yes.
Councilman Cook.
I'm just a little curious. First of all, I have my MARTA card in my wallet, but what particular employees are going to be taking advantage of MARTA to get to East Point? Where are these people coming from where they can get on the train to come here?
Now,
Now,
Mr.
before you respond, suppose we're talking about someone who's living in the city of Atlanta who actually works in East Point, okay? And not people, not employees who already live in this area. And and I said Atlanta, but anybody who's outside of the city of Atlanta, but who has accessibility to the MARTA rail. How many employees did we come up with so far that might be able to benefit?
This is a pilot program that we're introducing, and so therefore, based on the budget amendment, it will fit the needs of a certain percentage of the staff. But at the end of the day, we have a train less than 100 feet from us, and I think a lot of our employees do drive. So this is an alternative incentive as we continue to make the city green to make it work. I don't have a number of how many employees, but it's a small percentage that we start out with the pilot program. It's more of an educational tool as well as we move forward, is again, making the city green. No other answers that I have for you.
Okay. And the only reason I brought the question up, and I'm not attacking you or the idea, but I remember a very interesting conversation that went on when we were talking about T-Splosh and the availability of MARTA. And some interesting problems came up. Number one, people who could really benefit from using MARTA couldn't get to the train very easily. And most of them wanted a park and ride type situation. And by the time they went through all of that, they either lost more time or they spent more money. And I just want to make sure all of these factors are looked at before we really think we're going to have a program that's going to really help a lot. But if the major objective is also helping keep the planet green, I think I'll back off on my argument. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I think I'll still be here by then.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're going to have the Planning Community Development staff come up. So we'll have Kimberly Smith who will come up and give a brief overview of this particular item. Kimberly?
Good evening. Thank you, City Manager King. Good evening, Madam Mayor, fellow council. In reference to item number 1, it's an ordinance granting a special use permit to operate a commercial kitchen in the I-1 zoning district. The property is located at 1486 Willingham Drive. It's known as case number 2023 U-001-07 and a variance case number 2023 VC-001-07. The first case go back, please. The applicant is Goldberg Group Commission. The zoning of the property is light industrial. The applicant, as I stated, is seeking a special land use permit in the I-1 zoning district category to operate a commercial kitchen and a storage business. The applicant is also seeking a concurrent variance for relief for the distance requirement from residential properties. The current zoning district, as stated, is light industrial. The future land use category is Town Center Sub Area 3, which is our Willingham warehouse corridor area. This is a floor plan schematic of the proposal. Filtration notes and the commercial kitchen details. Staff recommended approval with conditions. Planning Commission also recommended approval of the special permit with the variance and several conditions. First condition, one trash receptacle must be provided, constructed with masonry material and closed on 3 sides. Trash receptacles shall not be visible from Willingham Drive, but in compliance with the city ordinances and building code. Second condition, in accordance with the Willingham Corridor Authority, which was adopted and incorporated into East Point 2017 Comprehensive Plan on August 2022. And it was actually our 2022 Comprehensive Plan. And the newly drafted East Point Equity Statement also included in the said document. The special use permit shall be conditioned, number 1, include a retail component that provides healthy food options to residents most directly impacted by the business operation and other patrons as identified in the Willingham Corridor Study. Item number 2, the retail business hours shall reflect business hours of similar operations of the applicant. And item number 3 under conditions, the retail component may include, but shall not be solely consisted of a food mobile truck. This condition shall not preclude the applicant from establishing other retail operations within the city of East Point. And I believe the applicant is present.
Do you want me to go ahead
Attorney
and read
Williams.
the zoning information?
Oh, no, we don't have the.
Oh,
Good evening. You pick me up there? I'm Brian Pasanti. I'm General Counsel and Vice President for Goldberg's Commissary and Goldberg's Group. We're the applicant. Can you put up slide number 1? You have it? I've got it too.
Okay.
It's in the slides directory. Our application is to take what is existing warehouse building built in 1974 and to convert that building into a commercial food kitchen with commissary for airline catering and warehousing. So we're working with an existing structure that's at 1486 Willingham Drive. Yes, slide number 1, please. And this slide shows you the current conceptual plan with the existing building, parking and fencing. We're at the corner of Willingham Drive and Elm Street. So it's our intent to upgrade the building by basically replacing the roof, replacing the fencing, and installing the commercial kitchen in the interior picture, which is slide 4, I believe. Conceptually shows you how that commercial kitchen would lay out within the building. Some of the most significant things to us, and we think to the city of East Point, is the fact that the investment we're putting in this building, the fact that it will employ 25 to 40 employees. It's going to do airline catering, which is one of the designated mixed use to be built in the Willingham corridor according to your comprehensive plan. And we made our application before the Planning Commission for this use, and we consented to the additional condition number 1 that's on the recommendation from the Planning Commission. But we did not agree to condition number 2 for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is the limited parking and access for putting in a sort of retail restaurant facility. So instead, we expressed our interest in participating in the East Common project, which is across the street from City Hall here, which is currently under development. And yes, we did not believe that we could fit the retail restaurant operation in this facility. If you'll look at, let's go back to slide number 1. There's only 14 parking places in the front. And there's an access point on Willingham, and then there's an access point over here on Elm Street. And so we did not think that this building could support both uses because it's not a facility that's designed for retail restaurant operations. So instead, well, we went back and forth with the Planning Commission to try and come up with a solution to their aspirational concerns about the Willingham Corridor study. We suggested a food truck. And then after further discussion, we decided that a better way to solve the interaction in our interest in East Point was to participate in the East Commons project, which is being constructed across the street from this building right here. And so we just don't think that we can fit both uses in this existing facility. If this were a demo and we were demolishing the building and starting over, then that could potentially have been something we might have considered. But with using the existing building with the existing parking and the existing curb cuts, we'd still prefer and ask City Council to approve our special use applications, but without condition number 2. The net result will be that the warehouse building will be substantially enhanced. It will employ between 25 and 40 employees for 1.5 shifts. The type of food production that's ongoing in there would be the type that would prepare, pack, freeze, chill, and then rack food for airlines. So that's the kind of operation that would go on in this facility. And we're excited about the concept. We're substantially invested in the facility. We want to put more into the community, and appreciate any questions you might have in the working meeting about our applications or our plans.
Councilmember Renee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sir, thank you for your presentation. Can you explain like the square footage of this particular warehouse? And now, are you familiar with also Eden Garden as well? Arden Garden, I always get that backwards. Arden Gardens, because they are also the same kind of setup in a sense. However, the parking is tight. But East Point has, East Point is their #1 selling store, which they were very surprised about those numbers when they came out. But they've been their #1 selling store for the last 5 years. So, so what kind of, I understand that it's a food, like, would you make food there? Would you, is it just a storage food place?
It would.
What kind of warehouse would this be?
It would be both, but it's not it's not like a retail restaurant where you would make food to order. It's a plan where the airlines have a certain set menu, and 600 of a plated material would be made 2 or 3 days in advance. It's based on a very fixed menu that changes throughout the year. So it's more of a mass production facility that would then freeze or chill the product, plate the product on racks, flat trays that then go into the carts that they're carried to the plane. So the type of cooking and processing is quite a bit different than a made-to-order kind of sit-down restaurant or even a walk-up restaurant. So you would have to separately plot the facility, have separate equipment to do both those operations. And frankly, we're probably going to use every bit of the 15,900 square foot that's in the existing building, because we have to build chillers, freezers, coolers, dry good racks. And then there's a logistics operation where the carts that go onto the airplane have to be rolled in, stocked, put back in a truck, carried to the airport, put on a plane. So we exhaustively considered the questions raised by the Planning Commission about could we get some sort of retail restaurant use, and we do different types of retail restaurant uses, like an Atlanta Braves Grill, Goldberg's Deli. We do those. We just don't think we could fit that in this structure and still accomplish our business objective.
And so the traffic that we're talking about, when we're talking about trucks, what kind of trucks are we talking about, like for the traffic coming in and out? What time would your business start in the morning, and what time would your business end in the afternoon?
Yeah, the business would probably start early in the morning, 6 or 7 o'clock, and run to, if we did a shift and a half, it might run to 9 o'clock at night.
That's interesting, because a lot of times the airport opens right at 5 o'clock. And so if that's the case, the first plane is pulling out around 5:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. So would you wouldn't you be ready to stock before 5, those planes that are flying out? Or
I
you
don't think
you
this
don't-
facility would be servicing those type of flights. The international flights actually start later in the day. Besides, we rack our equipment, cool it, put it in the trucks. Some of them are refrigerated trucks.
Yes, sir.
So the type of trucks that would come and go are the kind of 16 to 24 foot trucks that you would see on the road, look like just like a Ryder truck. It's
Like a box truck.
short box truck. Right. We might 3 days a week get a trailered truck that would have food supplies and things like that for the production purposes.
And what time with those big trailer trucks like US Foods? We're talking about trucks like comes from US Foods.
Right.
will
It could
come
be
into that
Cisco
facility.
or a large food vendor might
Yes,
supply.
sir. Yes, sir.
might
What
supply
time would you
foods.
think that they will be coming in
And those would come in during the day.
during the day?
Yep.
All right, so you're thinking that your trucks and everything, not the US Food trucks, I'm giving that as an example. I don't know if you use them as a vendor. They'll come in through the middle of the day during normal business hours.
Correct.
But your box trucks will get there around maybe 5 or 6 in the morning to start loading up to get to the airport.
They would probably already be there. You see, if you look at the
So-
exhibit that's up there.
No, I see the exhibit, sir. I'm trying to get down to the time. I understand what you're saying. But what I'm trying to get to is that what time do you think the business would open and be loading up and be ready to move the product that they're serving to the airport? Are we talking about 2:00 in the morning? Are we talking about 3:00 in the morning?
No, I don't believe it'd be 2:00. You might have chefs or people there to light ovens at 5:00, but I suspect there'd be no trucks rolling until after 6.
You got chefs that can cook food that fast and then load them on a
They
tray
have,
and then
there's,
load them on a cart
there's
and
work,
then load them on
there's
a
work
truck?
that has to be done for the ovens to
Yes,
get
sir.
warmed up and prepared for cooking. So the earliest people would probably arrive at 5 a.m., but I can't imagine any earlier than that.
Yes, sir. All right. I yield for now, Madam Mayor. And according to this, planning and zoning is asking for you to serve food. And you are saying that's an absolutely no-no?
We don't think it can work in this premises, no, not because of the way the existing building is laid out and the number of parking places that are.
Well,
allocated.
if you drive by, let's see that. If you drive by Arden Garden, I think you can kind of get a gist of how they've made that work. And they've made it work pretty well to be a #1 selling store. And they're a national chain now, all around the country. So I'm just giving you a word of advice in reference to that. And then I understand that the food, you're saying it's going to be in a cart. I get that part. Thank you so much. But you have other restaurants Goldsboro has other restaurants that y'all actually do serve to the community. Is that correct?
In Atlanta, we do. Mhm.
Oh, okay. Or just in East Point, that this is what we decided to do. Okay, thank you, sir. I yield.
Attorney Williams, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yes, I'm maybe able to provide a bit of clarity only because we had this happen in court with I was pulling it up while we were talking with LSG Sky Chef, where they were also asked kind of the same type of question. And what I learned is when they're providing and preparing meals for airlines, they're prohibited in a lot of instances from letting those meals go outside the door unless they're counted, plated, prepared to go onto the plane. So I would imagine that if he's preparing directly for the airline, that very well could be in place. I know that Sky Chefs had that as an issue when they had in court, as well as Gate Gourmet. It was just something I think I wanted to make sure I share with you all. I definitely understand where the concern is. And maybe they can have a conversation about placing another location in that area somewhere to support in the community. But I think this one may be prohibited based on what the intent is. That's all.
Councilmember Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. And I was just thinking about this #2 in terms of the recommendation for planning and zoning. I know you mentioned in terms of your layout, you were not considering a food truck. Have you thought about partnering with a different company to bring in a food truck where you still handle your business and your operation, but partner with a different company
for the,
Yeah, one of the things that we've done is we've expressed our interest in the East Point Commons project, which has a number of parcels and square footages set aside for retail/restaurant space. We think that would be a much better fit for us and for our business model and what we can develop as far as serving food, whether it be something more of a breakfast line or something more like the Atlanta Braves Grill type restaurant that we operate.
Thank you for sharing that.
have you read our Willingham corridor study? Have you read the Willingham corridor study for
I
that
have.
area that's been approved by Hateville, College Park, and East Point?
I have. We've looked closely at the Willingham corridor study as the provisions of that, concepts of that were built into your comprehensive plan. Your comprehensive plan discusses that at some length. And if you'll turn to slides 5. Your comprehensive plan contemplates exactly the kind of use that we're proposing here. We may not hit all the tick boxes for the mixed kind of uses that you
Right.
want to develop, but we are airline supported. We are using an existing facility. We are in an I-1 district. We have an I-1 neighbor on the right, I-1 neighbor on the left, I-2 neighbor across the street, and a green space behind us. So we're trying to enhance this property. We may not get it as high up as the aspirational goals of the
That part.
corridor study suggested, but it's still a substantial enhancement to the existing building.
Right, but it's not. So you said it was exactly what our comprehensive plan anticipates. It's not, because you just indicated that it doesn't hit all of the aspirational goals. And so you also mentioned that you have retail areas or restaurant areas in other places. So Arden's Gardens is not a sit-down restaurant. They manufacture fresh juice and send it across the country. And they also sell that to the community along with other items. They have some outdoor patio seating. But so when we think about the Willingham corridor as 3 tri-cities and the development we're looking for, it's really more adaptive reuse of existing industrial businesses, which is probably why the Planning and Zoning Commission had the condition of there being a requirement for retail sales, because you do that in Atlanta. You just mentioned that. And anticipating that long-term vision and goal of a Tri-Cities area of what we're really trying to do there. And so if it is approved with the conditions recommended by Planning and Zoning, then your company would have to figure out a way to meet those conditions. And I'm sure where there's a will, there's a way, and you all provide retail other places. And I think, and I'll go back and look at that Planning and Zoning meeting in those discussions. And the fact that they made it to a condition means it's a legal condition. It has been determined to be something that can be a part of this. And I think as we look at the Willingham corridor study, which yes, is incorporated by reference into our comprehensive plan, this doesn't meet, and it's not exactly what's there based upon even what you just said. You said it doesn't reach the aspirational goals, but it's a warehouse. You want to bring a warehouse in to distribute food to the airport. And so I'm not sure what types of trucks you all use to distribute the food to the warehouses. To the airport, you mentioned there's hundreds of meals, so not sure how big the vehicles have to be for that. But that's additional that type of traffic in that area where, again, there's been a Tri-Cities visioning of what we want the Willingham corridor area to be. And I think the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I'll go back and look at that meeting, considered that in making this or recommending that this be a condition to require that, so that it is more in line with the vision of the redevelopment and revitalization of that area, and having adaptive reuse of industrial properties that would be more compatible with residential in the areas right up the street from residential, and be able to also be supportive and beneficial to the community that would actually be a neighbor, an adjacent neighbor to where this property is. And so We have Councilmember Butler and Councilmember Robertson, but this is, a public hearing is required, so it'll also be on our agenda on Monday, November 20th for public hearing. Councilmember Butler and then Councilmember Robertson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think he said several times they were going to use box trucks like this, the Ryder trucks, or I think he used the word Ryder, but U-Haul trucks to transport his food. So it's not unclear what he's going to do to transport his food. I think we're missing the point. We have an opportunity to bring in a brand name company to East Point. And based upon the recommendations of the committee, they are doing everything to mitigate the need to bring in fresh food by going as far as to put a restaurant in the Commons area. We've heard from our city attorney who said through case law that it's not suitable or plausible to put in a retail location in an industrial kitchen. The needs are totally separate. And I think it's disingenuous when we take a business who's trying to work with the city by providing fresh food and becoming a tenant in our new development to do so. And I just want to remind us, we're trying to get to yes. The difference between this and what Artist Garden does, they make juices and they put them in bottles which they can sell, and you could come in, you could go out, I've done it. I enjoy it. These people, they don't make the food that you can consume. If you've ever been on an airplane, then you know, especially traveling internationally, the food is frozen, then they put it on the plane, they heat it up on the plane to serve. It's two different uses. And it's irresponsible for us to say, I don't know what the size of the truck is, when he said what the size of the truck is. It's irresponsible to consider doing something when the city attorney just said it wasn't prudent. What we're trying to do is, this company Goldberg wants to come to our city. I don't understand, anytime we have a high brand company coming in to upgrade East Point, we always want to bring them down. He said, and I'm almost quoting verbatim, we listen to the needs of the commission. We recognize that you guys want to have food options that you can have in Buckhead, and we are willing to do it. And we're going to do it in your new retail Commons project. So my question to you, have you spoken to anybody with the Commons project to put in your restaurant?
We've signed a letter of intent with the developer for the Commons project indicating our interest.
Wait, let me get this straight. Not only did you not meet with them, you signed a letter of intent showing your commitment to invest in a retail location at East Point.
That's true.
What more do we want businesses to do? The property is zoned I-1. Now, this is my question for Ms. Elias, who is a deputy city manager. What is I-1? You used to be in zoning. What does I-1 stand for, right? Just play that. What is I-1?
It's light industrial.
Light industrial. You don't put retail in light industrial? Let's make sense and stop hazing people that want to do business in our city.
So, hazing is a criminal term, and so there's no hazing going on, and having a different view from other people up here is permissible. And so being supportive of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the people who serve on that commission to make a recommendation to us, it's also prudent and responsible. And so I'll go to Councilmember Robertson before I conclude my comments on this item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. I apologize.
Brian Pasanti.
Mr. Bryant, East Point is open for business. Thank you for selecting us. What I'm hearing, and I'm going to just echo my colleague, you're bringing a business to us to serve the #1 airline in America, or Delta Airline. You chose us because we're located here, and then you're going to now, you made a commitment in the downtown commons area? Is that correct?
That's correct. We signed a letter of intent with the developer. Mhm.
We are open for business. I hope council can figure out a way to continue to welcome people and figure out a way that we can work together to make it work so we can serve the greater good. Because we want this to be a destination point as we come into downtown commons, but more importantly, we are positioned to attract businesses like you. We're near the airport. That's why Amazon and other companies come here, because we're here. We're at this location. So we are open for business. We want to send that message to everybody. We're open for business, but there is a process. This is part of the process. Welcome to the process. And let's hope we will get through this together. I yield, Madam Mayor.
Attorney Williams, did you say there was case law that said it's illegal to do what the planning and zoning attorney has advised the planning and zoning commission that it's legal to do?
No, I don't know that the planning and zoning attorney did that, but I didn't say it was case law. I said based on my practice and research based on Sky Chefs and Gate Gourmet, that there's federal regs that were required that they not do what is it I'm looking for? A commercial kitchen that has a component inside of the same edifice that allows them to serve the community.
We do have to jump through USDA and FDA site regulation requirements because the food we're producing is then served to consumers on the airlines. So I wouldn't be surprised if we couldn't even place it together.
So I'm sorry, say that again?
Ma'am, we have to comply with USDA and FDA regulations for building the food packages, shipping them to the airline. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we can't maintain the two operations side by side without a separation.
But that's not something you shared with the planning and zoning commission, and you're not aware of that at this point?
I'm not. I'll certainly research it though.
Okay. Because I would, and then maybe you should speak with the planning and zoning attorney, Attorney Weems, about the condition. It would be hard pressed for me to believe that the planning and zoning attorney sat there and allowed them to recommend something that is illegal. If so, that's a different question and a conversation we need to have with the attorney. And y'all finished? I'm just wait till you finish.
I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have, Madam
Okay.
Mayor.
And so the recommendations from the Planning and Zoning Commission include retail. I look forward to finding out whether or not that's actually illegal. And hopefully you have that information, Attorney Weems, before our meeting on Monday. Because the person standing before us who does business in this manner doesn't know whether or not it's illegal. So it suggests that it possibly is a possibility. And I don't think that the retail that they were anticipating is distributing of the same type food that you would be distributing to an airline. And so, again, I value the people on planning and zoning, their recommendations and the service that they provide, as well as the desire and goals within the Willingham Corridor study that does look at adaptive reuse of industrial properties, or ensuring that there's ways to make sure that there's benefit to the neighboring communities. As it relates to a letter of intent for the commons development, it doesn't mean that you can't do both, right? So if you've already submitted a letter of intent for the commons, doesn't mean that you still couldn't do a retail if it's legal, and we don't know tonight that it is illegal at that establishment as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So having different views is not irresponsible, it's just different. And it's something for you to consider as you move forward and come into our community, because you mentioned that you do have other establishments as well. And so this will be on the agenda for Monday for a public hearing. And hopefully by then, we will have the answer as to whether or not the condition recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission is illegal, such that it would be something that should not be considered, because we don't have that answer tonight. And no one said that there's case law that says that it's illegal. So thank you so much. We will now move to
Thank you for your time.
council. Hold on a minute really quick. Councilmember Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. And I'm just trying to figure out how we can get to yes, meaning that where you can, Goldberg can come in and move into that space because it's an empty space now, but also meet the condition of the zoning committee. You mentioned that your workers will be coming in midday. Is it possible for a food truck to be in there, a collaboration in the morning? Perhaps. So that way, we have the retail, because I think there's some desire. I actually live in walking distance between there, and I actually support the project, but I would like to see the conditions met, because that's the movement of that corridor.
We have a food truck. That was one of our initial proposals, but that didn't solve the parking issue as we continued discussions with the planning commission. So I don't know, that's still a possibility, but I don't know how to fix the parking issue.
All right, just a thought. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, item number 42, storage facility at 1492 Central Avenue. We already held a public hearing on this, and so hopefully the presentation is providing updates of what's happened since the last time it was before us. Because if I'm not mistaken, we had to hold a public hearing because it was advertised. Madam Deputy City Clerk, does anyone recall when this public hearing was held?
There's no update as far as I know. It's just moving through the zoning procedure.
I thought they asked for a deferral to work with staff.
The applicant is here if we need to speak with them, but we're moving
Yeah.
forward through the regular process.
Okay, what's the recommendation? Just go to the end of the recommendations, and then I will allow the applicant's representative to come up.
Absolutely. Staff recommended to deny the application. Planning Commission recommended to approve with the following conditions. Planning Commission's first condition, no container to be stored within areas of the front yard of the current building to the street. Second condition, no container to be stored within 50 feet behind the screen entrance gate. Condition number 3, screened fence shall be a maximum of 6 feet high. Condition 4, reestablish sidewalk along property frontage. Condition number 5, all outside storage shall be fenced and located within the rear and side yards. Condition number 6, parking must be repaved and striped prior to obtaining a business license. Condition number 7, no crates or pods shall be stacked exceeding the height of the screen fence on site. And condition number 8, all unloading and loading of storage units shall only be conducted during the regular business hours of 4 a.m. to 7 p.m. The applicant should be present to answer questions.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Andre Washington, 1 Atlantic Center, 1201 West Peachtree Street Northwest from Cumberland Horse. Honored to be here on behalf of the applicant, Redbox Plus, doing business as Dumpster Man North Atlanta. When we left off, one of the important issues that we wanted to address was what our authority was as a tenant applicant. Important distinction is no problem. Again, Andre Washington, honored to be here and happy to be here in East Point. Attorney for Redbox Plus, doing business as Dumpster Man North Atlanta. when we left off last time, one of the important things that I wanted to do was make sure that we had the authority to agree to certain conditions. As I mentioned there, we are the tenant applicant. We do not own this property. And so any capital improvements as suggested in the conditions that we are agreeable to, that you might add to, we need to make sure that we know who was going to do what. And so at this point, the best thing that I can say to you to make this most easy is that we're agreeable to the conditions. That the final say-so with those conditions would come to the property owner. Most important thing for us tonight is to hear from the council. In addition to these conditions that have been recommended with the Planning Commission, if the council sees additional things, I wanted to be sure that I had the authority to have the discussions to say, we can take this back. And important for the property owner is that in order for him to make the changes or the property owner to make the changes, they need to get a directive from the city council that says, these things need to happen, at which point in time they will consider them. Just a little context about our business. Redbox Plus is a national franchise that is locally owned. Our best day is when our cans are across the metro Atlanta area. The reason why we are here today is because brought our business to the city of East Point, attempt to go through the registration and realize the property was not properly titled. Went through every step to attempt to go through this, and it's kind of gotten to this point. We're here for, again, a short-term lease, and I'm happy to answer any questions about how we operate, what might be useful for the city, and really, again, to say that our plan here is not disrupt the long-term plan for the corridor study or for the area. It's just to bring an active tenant to the industrial area. And so we recognize that they are very strong and important and, quite frankly, genuine feelings about how the direction of this city, and we agree. We just want to be a good corporate citizen and activate this site. So with that, I'll pause, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Was the public hearing already held on this? I feel like you've been here before and it was for the public hearing.
I did present the public hearing. This was just an update, and I like hanging out with y'all.
You almost said that in a way that I believe it. So you all were not able to communicate with the owner about these conditions? Is that what you're saying?
No, we've communicated with the owner. The owner's made it clear that the conditions, in order for him to commit to the conditions, it would have to come from an approval saying, hey, if these are the conditions that city council is saying is what's necessary, then we can negotiate with him about when, where, and how. And so I didn't want to get in front of you last time and say, oh yeah, the owner will do this, that, and third, without having at least some authority that says the owner's position is a directive from city council that these things must happen, will spur him to make an action. I don't represent the owner. I represent the tenant applicant.
Councilmember Cook, Councilmember Bell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This question is more for curiosity's sake. I remember when we had the slide display, and something caught my attention, so I'm going to bring this up. As a rule, I generally don't have issues with whatever the Planning Commission comes up with. But item number 3 sticks out to me for one simple reason. It says that the fence height would be limited to 6 feet. And when we had the display, I noticed a number of containers that were higher than 6 feet. I don't know if they were sitting on something else or that was just the actual height. And I was curious as to whether or not this limitation is put in there for reasons other than cosmetic, and were they done for a safety reason or?
So, great question, Councilman Cook. This condition came as a function of the Planning Commission, and I think 6 feet might be the statutory height of fences. I believe that there's Attorney Williams might be able to help me with that. I wish I could point to authority, but I think that there's a statutory height, right? Secondarily, I think the overall goal, the core of the intent, was to make sure that if you're driving past the street, if the containers shouldn't be visible, and so at 6 feet, most often the containers are not visible. When they're stacked, though, they can be if they're really close to the gate. But at this point, they will be 50 feet behind the gate, a 6-foot gate. They're less likely to be visible. Ultimately, my client is willing and able to be compliant with the conditions in the code. And so if the ask is that the cans aren't visible from the street, we will comply with that.
Okay, so will the fence be the corrugated fence that was in the display or something that's solid?
So the fence, there was a fence that was originally, when we originally leased the property, the fence was in a kind of a falling down state. We have since repaired it and added a screen to it, so it's opaque. So it's not necessarily a wood fence or open gate, but they've done the wrapping. And again, to the extent that it's approved, that will be maintained.
Well, if everybody's happy, who am I? Thank you.
Councilmember Bailey?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your presentation.
Happy to be here.
You mentioned, I heard you say something about a short-term tenant.
Yes.
Talk to me about what that means.
So your typical commercial leases can be 10 years. I think this is just a couple years. And so we obviously have multiple renewal processes. It is not common in my experience as a land use and zoning attorney that I come as a applicant tenant. Most often I'm a contract purchaser or a property owner. And so the point that I'm making with that is that this isn't going to be an entitlement, at least for this applicant, for my client's purposes. It's going to last 7 or 8 years. As much as it is, it'll be a couple of years before we again renew. And the goal ultimately is to activate this site. And that it does a couple of things for us. Before we can commit long-term, these kinks have to be worked out. And we want to make sure that we are aware of the important concerns here in the city of East Point, but then also addressing them as best as possible. So I think this provides an opportunity for the city council to say, if you're going to do business at this site and in our city, here are the rules of the road in addition to whatever the code says.
And you mentioned as far as operating as dumpster man, so like, is it possible that you start with the crates and then end up being a dumpster? Like, could that happen?
No, so Dumpster Man North Atlanta is not the most attractive name, but Redbox Plus operates those cans at construction sites. So if you think renovations, I think Arrow Waste is one of them, a competitor where you see a house being renovated and there just needs to be a can parked there. We don't keep dumpster material at the site. It is empty cans, clean cans that have been being deployed to other sites. Trash is then put in those sites. It is dumped in other locations, and then it comes back to our site where it's cleaned and contained. And so this is not a place where any trash will be held.
And then last question, as far as transportation of those big crates, what are those transported on?
They're transported on what is essentially dump trucks. So if you can imagine the dump trucks in the front, but instead the container slides off on the site. So it lifts up, slides off. If I had my USB, I would be able to show you, but essentially it is very clean, well-maintained dump trucks that pick up the cans, move them out. And it's only a few of them because our drivers start early in the morning. It's anywhere between 4 and 6, picking up the containers, deploying them at different sites, rotating them out through the day. But so most often there aren't a bunch of cans on site because we don't make money when the cans are parked on site. The way the business makes money is when cans are placed across Metro Atlanta area for temporary times and then stored on occasion, or stored as is necessary, on the site.
How many drivers will be there on site delivering the crates?
So as far as I can tell, and I would have to check with them because I'm not in the daily operation. Most drivers aren't on site, so I think that they operate a few trucks in the area, and I can get an answer to that if you have that. If you want a specific number of drivers, I think it's probably less than 15 or 20 drivers, but those drivers aren't necessarily circling all day. I don't know how many cans or drivers they operate per day. I'm not in the. I can determine what their shifts are like if that is helpful for you.
Because where this area is, it does back up to a residential area, and so just trying to get an understanding of how that would impact the residents right behind this area. In fact, I live walking distance from this myself.
Well,
So I'm just interested in knowing that.
As if I remember correctly from the Willingham Corridor study, this is part of Town Center 2, which has relatively speaking low traffic, and it is surrounded by other industrial uses. So one of the things that is, I think, a benefit of this particular business is that our trucks are there for a short amount of time to pick up the cans and then go. We're not constantly funneling traffic in and out as much as it is early in the morning, cans are picked up and then leave, and then late at night, cans come back and are parked as is necessary. So it's not consistent, steady flow of 10 or 12 trucks that are coming in and out.
I yield, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate your presentation. I have two things. The screen fence with the maximum 6-foot height. I would rather that be either a wooden fence where you cannot see between the screens, because the dumpsters are not a really pleasant sight. So maybe if it's a wooden fence where you can't see behind the yard, because screen fence tend to wear and tear with the weather, and then people tend to kind of let it go, and the next thing you know, you can still see all of the dumpsters. My questions is with the dumpsters, because I know like when you're lifting those dumpsters, there's a horn that goes off, if you understand what I'm saying, like it goes beep, beep, beep,
Yeah,
beep,
warning
beep.
signals.
All right, so your operation of business is going to be about 16 hours per day, starting at 4 a.m. in the morning. And so when they're coming to lift, because they're coming to lift that big dumpsters, what they do is when they're lifting those things, the alarm, like when they back them up or when they're lifting them, there's a large sound that is being made. And my biggest concern is residential people sleeping at 4 a.m. in the morning. Because I know that when I look at other companies, when they're picking up those dumpsters, they make a noise. It's almost like a loud horn in a sense. And I'm just wondering, is that going to be part of the process when you're doing this?
Well, Madam Councilman, may I approach with a couple of maps that are illustrative? I wish I would have had my.
No, I saw you last time, and then I saw the pictures when you guys had them, and then the fence.
Oh, no, I want to show you the zoning map of the uses, surrounding uses. So if you look at the surrounding uses, literally all the properties around are similarly situated, heavily industrial uses. It abuts the southern, I think this is Norfolk Southern Railroad, and I think there's a recycling station right across the street. And so
Sir, I don't mean to be disrespectful. I don't. I know we're late on time. We know the area good. We walked it. And the reason why we walked it because they have a lot of automobile repair shops out there, and residents are absolutely upset with that. And we've been hauling them into court to clean that area up. Am I right about it?
You're correct.
So I know the area extremely well. That's why I'm being a little bit cautious on what we're trying to do here, because right across the street from there is a lot of houses right behind. If you see where Central Avenue is, you see Bayard, it backs up into East Washington.
Got it.
Nothing but homes back there, right? Now, also across the street, you have Egan Park, and you can see the houses from the Central Avenue corridor. Do you follow what I'm telling you?
Okay.
And so by you being able to see them, the problem is we've already got a lot of noise problems with some of the recycling plant that's back there, backs right up into East Washington. When they crush those cars, sometimes like they don't drain the gas tank, it sounds like an explosion. So what I'm saying is we have a lot of noise problem and pollution in that area already. I'm asking if like the dump trucks that we're using, right, to haul these dumpsters back and forth, they do make a loud sound when you're going to pick them up for the safety reason of them all. And I'm thinking like, is there any way that you can disarm that from certain period of time? Because 4 a.m., nobody wants to hear that with that being so close to the residents. I think we can resolve the fence issue by putting a wooden fence up, electric fence or whatever with a code. And I don't think that would be a major problem, because the screen fence, I think that would be a problem. Now, the sound, the noise pollution that will go on at 4 a.m. may cause concern for a lot of seniors who live in that district.
Understood.
That's all I'm asking.
So let me make sure I understand. You're saying the noise encroachment from up where Randall Street, Martin Street, are you saying the southern portion where William Henn Drive is? I'm just trying to get an orientation. Help me understand.
All right, so your location is going to be on Central Avenue,
Correct.
right? When you back up into Bayard, when you're going into Bayard, behind there is nothing but houses.
Okay.
All right, so when you go on the other side, like East Taylor Street, across from there is nothing but houses. That's Egan Park.
Got it.
Do you understand what I mean?
Okay, I see exactly what you're talking about.
You're literally within maybe 150 feet to 200 feet, either way from a residential neighborhood. So when I'm looking at the 4 a.m. in the morning, you have to be very concerned because, some of the residents are already been burdened with throughout the day with that recycling plant of crushing those cars and all that kind of stuff. And then, we got on R.M. Martin, we have the transfer station.
Yep.
So, and but they operate during normal business hours. So that's kind of tolerated. But if you go back there, you can hear all the noise that's going on throughout the day. Do you follow what I'm saying? So the
No.
dump trucks, when they're lifting those containers, they make a large noise. So I'm just asking, like, is there some way we can kind of offset that in a sense?
So I think, one, I wouldn't want to put my client in a position where they would remove any warning type of signals that could open them up to liability for failure to exercise ordinary care when it comes to like warning signals to keep their workers, employees safe. Setting that aside, I fully recognize that there is a concern about noise encroachment at certain hours of the day. And so to the extent that that can be addressed by making that condition maybe 6:30 or something like that, we're agreeable to that. I would have to discuss that ultimately with the client. We're not hard and fast on the 4 a.m. deadline. And I also say, as a general matter, the warning signals are designed to warn people in the direct vicinity. I don't think that these trucks have, foghorn signals consistent with a train or with other heavier industrial uses. But I think you're exactly right that there is a legitimate concern by neighbors of noise encroachment. We do our best to have that, again, as a safety precaution and to make sure that they're not sued for not having a noise, a warning signal that could lead to somebody being, grievously injured by not knowing that the truck is backing up or that a can is being lifted. But point very well taken, and we are open to amending conditions as necessary.
Thank you. So consider the hours of operation, maybe instead of 16 hours a day, maybe the normal range. Like for instance, even like you probably could extend it to 8 p.m. and then after 8, just drop it off. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe from 6 to 8 p.m. or something like that. Because 8 a.m. will be bad. So 7 will be good. All right, so
I mean, and we don't need to work super late in the day. I think that the latest that would be 7, and that just accounts for taking cans from a site after the end of a normal construction day and bringing them back. So if you can imagine that a normal construction day might end at 6:30 or 7, and you want to go pick up a can and be able to move that can in sometime between that 7 and 8 o'clock hour, I think that that's where that comes from. The most important is, these are reasonable questions, and we are agreeable to the extent that this helps us be a good citizen, and not disrupt the apple cart.
thank you. I yield, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A quick question, in reference to the containers, are they clean on the site?
Are they cleaned on the site?
Yeah, do you?
I don't know if they're cleaned. They're cleaned, I think, off-site and then brought back clean, but I know that there's no trash disposal on the site. So there's not debris from a construction site that's brought.
Right,
there.
I was asking from an environmental hazardous waste type of component. So just to make sure, because I know they're gonna be carrying a lot of different items, trash and waste. And I was wondering how they're gonna be cleaned and how that area is gonna be preserved from an environmental standpoint.
To the best of my knowledge, they are cleaned off-site, but to the extent that I need to follow up on that, I'm happy to follow up on that.
That'd be good to know. I yield, Madam Mayor. That's all I had.
How are the cans transported from the site to different locations? Like what types of vehicles are used to transport these cans?
The dump trucks that you would normally see at a construction site, except they're fitted for these cans. So if you can imagine your typical dump truck where there might be sand or mulch or something like that, where it's 2-seaters in the front, that's fitted to have a can. And then those are moved around the city. Again, the important thing about Redbox Plus and Dumpster Man North Atlanta is that it's a national franchise and it has a license, and so it has a particular reputation to uphold when it comes to branding and in terms of quality. They're very deliberate about that, and so we recognize that, again, the direction that this city is going through all y'all's hard work, you want to make sure that the folks that are doing business here are reflective of quality businesses, and Redbox Plus is that, and Dumpster Man North Atlanta is that.
I think there is a no truck traffic on Central Avenue as you enter into Hateville. So I don't know where your location is on Central. Like I looked it up on Google Map. I don't know if it's closer to. Yeah, these maps kind of give me challenges. I don't know if it's closer to what's hmm how are you gonna transport? So like there's options to get to 85, right? That's going to Hateville, but I think Hateville has a no truck traffic sign right there,
So.
which means if you can't go that way, you're gonna be then moving. Looks like these are moved by 18. No, you said the dumpsters, so they're not necessarily 18.
They're not 18-wheelers. They're
But
not.
they have the actual container on the back of them.
They have the container back. They're not 18-wheelers.
Okay.
And so let me just say, as a general matter, we will be compliant with all state and federal regulations when it comes to driving. We have to do that. If we weren't, we'd be cited by Georgia State Patrol or some local municipality. So to date, I have no knowledge at the present moment of any citations for driving trucks in the wrong area. I can ask my client, but I don't think that they've ever been cited, certainly not when returning cans, for violating those rules. And again, in terms of enforcement, they operate across the Metro Atlanta area. Had that been an issue, I'm certain that we would have probably heard of and had to address that. But point very well taken about respecting those rules.
Right, and respecting those rules pushes the truck traffic into East Point, right? So your routes to and from your location are going to be limited because of that requirement in Hateville. And so just trying to think of the impact on residential in the area, how you all would get to and from this site. That does have residential in the area when you can't. So like you could go down Central and get right on 85, but there's a prohibition over there.
Yeah, and whether or not we're there, I don't think that trucks are going to stop rolling. I think that for us, we are committed to, like I said, following whatever rules are necessary. We don't operate hundreds of trucks. It's probably somewhere between 10 and 20. I don't have the exact number, so it's not a massive fleet or ferry of trucks. It probably is less than that. The goal ultimately for us is to direct the business out across Metro Atlanta area. So they're deploying. So it's not necessarily a train of Amazon trucks during Thanksgiving or during Black Friday sales and Christmas. It's not that type of operation.
So there have been a number of questions or concerns shared with you tonight. We already had the public hearing on this. The next time it's on the agenda, it would be for action. You asked for a deferral. Will you have all of the answers to these questions? The option is November 20th. This Monday is the next council meeting. If not on the 20th, it would be December 4th. Am I right? Yeah, December 4th. At the next council meeting, December 11th is our next work session. If you came back to the December 11th work session, then the council meeting after that would be December 18th.
So you said 12/11 or 11/20, correct?
Yeah,
In your states.
you have 11/20, December 4th, December 11th, December 18th. The 11th is a work session like tonight, so we don't take action on it. The action Mondays are first and third Mondays.
So I would go for the 11/20. I might have to bring my granny here because she's coming down for Thanksgiving. She'll bring y'all pound cakes. So I'm happy. All jokes aside, if it might be helpful to you guys, listeners late, y'all, I would like to potentially provide answers in writing to you guys ahead of time. So that way it expedites any questions you might have. And I'm happy to work with the staff to do that. And then if you need me to present, I'm also happy to present as well. I recognize that it'll be Thanksgiving week and folks might be in, out, and around. So, and my granny will be in town, and so I will be happy to see her.
Okay, so I mean, it's your option. I don't think staff has any other changes, and you see the conditions from planning and zoning, and in addition to those conditions, there were questions that were raised tonight that
Okay.
sounds like, and they're raised by the ward council members for Ward B and other council members as well, myself. So, Ms.
I
Smith,
just
you want to
wanted
say
to make,
something?
yes, ma'am. I just wanted to make one adjustment for the record. The item that Councilman Cook spoke of, speaking of the fence, it's actually 8 feet, not 6.
Oh, 8 feet.
Yes.
Oh, so I wonder why they came with 6 feet.
They were trying to reach my height.
Yeah. So maybe Councilmember Renee, they're saying that the ordinance says 8 feet. So it could be higher than 6 feet.
Hey. Okay.
8 feet would be, sounds like the recommendation on that condition. And I was about to say impervious, but that's sidewalks. I don't know what you say through. Opaque or something. fence.
Opaque.
Can I ask you a question? We talked a lot about the outside of the building. Are they renovating or doing anything on the inside of the building? What's I mean, is that office
I-
space? What's going on
So I
the
think
inside?
we have an office space in there. I have not seen the inside because our business is focused on kind of deploying, moving around. We don't really use the inside of that business. Again, we inside of the building very much.
Mhm.
Again, we're a tenant applicant, so I don't know about what's going on in the building other than our office space being used.
Staff, what's the square footage of that building? And that's interesting.
I think our building is, if you give me 1 second.
It seems to appear to be a large space. And so the
That's
only
9,000
uses
square
right now
feet.
is that they're gonna house their office space in that large building?
Yeah, no, and so again, we are a tenant applicant for what it was, the building was like, it's 9,000 square feet, according to the records that I have. We don't operate in the building that often except in using the yard.
But when you're leasing the space, are you just leasing the outside or are you leasing anything on the inside?
We're leasing the part of the office space and the parking lot. We are not leasing the entire building. We're not using the entire building. There is no need for us to have the entire space in the building.
Interesting. All right, so what is it in use right now, council? I mean, I'm sorry, staff? Is the building in use now? I mean, do they have a permit for use at this time? Because it's 39,000 square feet,
Oh, no,
39,000.
9,000, just,
What am I seeing here on the screen?
I think that's the entire lot.
I
That's
see 10,000 down at the bottom.
39,000 is the square feet of the
Of the
lot.
whole entire lot.
The lot,
Okay, sorry.
correct. It's
So
a,
10,000 for the building?
I think I have 9,000, or I guess it's, yes, I have 9,000 in my records.
So is that building, is someone in that building now? Is that building in use for something right now or what? Because what's the other part of that space? Because this sounds a little suspicious.
According to the information that we have, the building is currently in use, and it may be in use without a business license at this time.
That's what I was thinking.
I don't represent the property owner.
All right, so we may need to follow through with that one, everybody, staff. Because we got some issues here. Thank you. Thank you.
If it's helpful to note, Councilmember Renee, Attorney Washington's clients are already in court and they've given us enough information to go after the other people who are operating without a business license, and we are doing that.
For the record, I didn't give, just conceded what was related. Attorney Weems, don't have folks coming after me. I just represented my client. I don't know what's going on. In the words of The Wood, I'm from North Carolina. I don't know nothing about no set. I'm just here to represent my client.
All right, so November 20th.
November 20th, I'll be
Agenda.
here.
per the request of the applicant, and you'll get the information to us.
Thank
Might
you.
have an issue with your lease, but it seems like you're helping them out, so I don't know.
Thank you. Okay,
Item number 43.
Item number 43 is an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of East Point for a property located at 1457 Gus Thornhill Jr. Rook Drive. This property is a rezoning from I-1 light industrial to RT residential townhouse. And it's known as zoning case number 2023 RZ-001-07. The current property is zoned I-1 as stated, and it's also located in the Cleveland overlay district. The future land use map is redevelopment neighborhood. The proposed rezoning for the property is to develop 7 attached townhomes. And these are a rendering of the proposed elevations. Staff recommended approval with 5 conditions. Planning Commission recommended approval with 4 conditions. First condition being the architectural facade and siding must be aesthetically compatible with materials with the neighboring residential homes, including modern style houses found in the East Washington community, and building design must comply with the Cleveland Avenue overlay. Condition number 2, a detailed tree landscaping plan shall be submitted for approval by the Planning and Zoning Division and assigned arborist. Condition number 3, sidewalks to be provided fronting all buildable lots. Condition number 4, no more than 7 lots for the project. The applicant should be present.
Okay, good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Patrick Peel, and I'm the owner of 1457 Gus Thornhill Jr. Drive. And the property is, as stated, the property is currently located in East Washington neighborhood. It's in a very, it's in a very prime location. There's a lot of new construction that is going on. There are, a lot of new construction going on. There's a potential for property increase for pricing. And from my proposal is that townhouses for this particular lot are the most viable and highest and best use of this property. Okay, so like I said, the location of this property is a very good location. It's next to the MARTA station, and the rezoning from light industrial to townhouses would add to the goals of affordable housing in the city of East Point. Next slide. All right, and middle housing will be able to provide affordability and neighborhood desirability. It can also increase the diversity of housing options that can better accommodate people of all ages and physical abilities, stages in life, including multi-generational families. All right, we have purposefully limited this project to seven units, and which will blend in well with the neighborhood and the townhouses, and it also is in line with the Cleveland overlay district. The property is closely located to two other townhouse communities, Martin Street and Sterling Village. So it's not going to be a spot zoning issue. This is an example of Sterling Village Townhouse Community. And this is an example of Martin Street Townhouse Community. These townhouses that I propose are going to be modeled after these ones here on Martin Street. Currently, the Martin Street townhouses consist of 8 units, and we're proposing 7 on our parcel. The parcels are very similar in square footage. As you can see here, the property, the square footage is very similar. And now to demonstrate the demand for townhouses in this area, as you can see that the median days on market is only 5 days. And which is the average of 7 days. Go ahead. And they're selling slightly over what their asking price at over 100%. And single family houses are in very much demand in the same area as well, with slightly longer median sales price. Median sales days on market is 18 days and an average of 37. Okay, the median sale price for the townhouses have risen from 2020 from 236,000 to 330,000. That's an increase of over 20%. And for single family houses, they started off at 262, and they're now presently 414, which is an increase of 37%. The subject property, as you can see right here, the north view, it is approximately a half acre, a little bit over a half acre. And there was a single family structure that was raised between 2008 and 2010. And this is the south view of that property. Okay, and this is also a view facing westward on Gus Thornhill. And this is also a view facing westward on Gus Thornhill. As you can see that there's clearly residential properties on this street. And once again, we have another westward view. And this is a photo from Google Maps, and it was it's a photo of the structure that was there. And as I was saying before, there's a lot of new builds that are going around in that area. And as you can see that the prices have gone up dramatically as they started off in the high 4s, and now they have ended in just south of 600,000. And these are a couple of more examples of the new construction that are going around in this East Washington area. And once again, we have some more examples. So as you can see, there's a lot of activity in this area. And this is a map showing that where all the new construction is. You can see the little red dots. And this is a map to show the distance from Gus Thornhill, this property, to the MARTA station, which was roughly a 10-minute walk. And this is the current zoning for light industrial, which is right abutted next to residential. And this is the proposed site plan. And this is the other site plan for the 7 townhouses. And these are the floor plans that we're proposing for this project. And these are the elevations. And these are examples of the elevations and the materials that will be used for the exterior of the property. And these are examples of what these properties should look like after they're erected. And once again, this project is going to provide affordable housing. It's going to ease the tax burden because now it will be 7 different lots as opposed to 1. And I truly believe that the townhouses would be the highest and best use for this particular project. Thank you.
Councilmember Renee, Councilmember Butler.
My question is to staff. Thank you, Mr. Peel. That was a great presentation. The only thing that I do want to make a correction, because your presentation was based on a 2020 survey. The buying market is down, especially in East Point, at least by 21 days and longer. And a lot of these properties are staying on the market. Some of the houses that you showed over in East Washington, we were happy to see them come, but originally they came on the market at 800,000. And now they've been sliced in half. I think they're trying to sell them. They can't sell them. They're trying to sell them, and we want them to buy. We really, really do. But from 799 and 850,000, they've come down to 400,000, and some are still at 500,000. But they're staying on the market a lot longer now. So that's just a little advice. And I did Google it while you were sitting here based on your 2020 analysis. But I thought it was really good. My question is to Mrs. Smith. The size of that lot is an acre. It's a half an acre.
Yes, ma'am.
And so according to our ordinance, will 7 units be sustainable for that lot size?
Yes.
Okay. And that's really good. And then I saw in the presentation where the garage is on the bottom floor. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
Right.
correct.
And there's no structure behind the parking lot.
No, that'll be additional residential parking.
Oh, it's just a parking lot, like just additional parking. I saw for the 35 spaces. And so that's where the 35 spaces will be in the back.
Well, the 35 spaces
It's okay.
they consist of the 2, each one of the garages is gonna have 2 garages.
Mhm.
I mean, 2-car garage. And each of the garage will have 2-car apron. And then you will have 7 visitors parking along the side.
Oh, okay. So egress and how would they enter and leave the property? Because it seems like it's going to be a really tight space coming in and out How are they able to leave out of that property?
Through that side drive right there. And you can see the visitors parking on the side.
I see where you got the visitors parking in the back. So of course, that's a driveway that comes through. Are they gonna be able to circle around to the front, or is it one way in and one way out?
It's going to be one way in, and if you can see at the top, that's where you can allow for a 3-point turn, and then you can turn back around.
And the only reason is like we're having some difficulties now with, and this just recently came up to us, where the trucks, where our garbage trucks are able to get in and out. We're having a major problem with that for them to come in and pick up the trash, right? Because they're not able to navigate through smaller spaces. That's number one. Number two, our emergency vehicles trying to get in to get someone in case of an emergencies. That is another problem that we're having, where they can't get in. But on a day-to-day basis, when we're talking about the garbage truck coming in and out of there, that may be a concern. Ms. Smith, can you address that issue? Mr. Peel, I want you to let her take the mic for now.
All of the logistical site planning issues will be worked out in the concept, where all of our technical review committee people will provide comments on the details of how the project is logistically set out and making sure that it provides for enough space at that time. So the application tonight is just looking at how the property could be granted the rezoning from the I1 to the IRT, if that makes sense.
It does. All right. So what we just want to make sure that these factors are included in, because residents right now are having a major problem in other communities with hauling their trash, trying to get their trash to the curb. And it was, they can't take it through the house, you know what I mean, to make sure that they could get it picked up. So these are some of the problems. Will there be a dumpster on site, or is it just one Herbie Kirby for each family? How is this going to look?
So all of those type of logistical site planning details will be worked out in the concept plan as they go through plan review. If this particular site plan happens if it's approved and it's submitted, we will all come together and make individual revisions or recommendations based on what the code provides for. So we can definitely put in additional comments. But I don't know if we would want to put in additional conditions at this point, because we're just doing the rezoning at this stage. So in total, what I'm trying to say is all of those things will be worked out once he goes through the site development process. He would not be allowed to bring something in that doesn't fit. He may have to reduce a unit or two, to make it happen, but it would have to abide by the codes that are set.
I'm in support of the project. I just want to make sure that we address all of these issues up front, because it has been a major impact on other residents. And I don't know if it was an oversight on the other developers or the buildings, but we want to make sure we catch this stuff up front now as we roll through these processes. Thank you.
Thank you. I really think it should be more than one way in and one way out. Because when they build some of these subdivisions, the streets are so narrow that the emergency vehicle can barely get down. So you always want one way in and one way out. As for trash, if I'm not mistaken, it will be just like any other townhomes. They will have a trash thing there for them to take their trash to. So the sanitation is, they're going to go down to get the trash, but I don't think they're going to give them trash. I might be wrong, but I don't think so. I think it will fall under the current ordinances that we have when it comes to townhomes, and they having to build a trash receptacle for them to put the trash. Yeah, for them to put the trash in. But I do. So do the sanitation go over there and pick them to do it? Yeah. Okay. But we do need more than one way in and one way out for safety reasons.
Well, the only thing is that those buildings or those structures are going to be fronting Irene Kidd. And for the only other exit would be Irene Kidd. I believe that would be problematic in itself. And also, if it's a safety issue, I mean, you have Irene Kidd right there. I mean, couldn't the emergency vehicle just park right there?
Irene Kidd where you're located is right in that curve.
Mhm.
And so what you're trying to do is set up another accident. Because think about it, you're at Gus Thornhill and Irene Kidd comes around in that bend. And that's where your apartments, the townhouses will sit right in that bend. And so is it possible where you have a way in on Gus Thornhill, because you're right there, you're going to back up on that side, right, of Gus Thornhill, and then you can have another exit coming out into Irene Kidd. Is that possible?
It's possible, but from the counsel that I had, that was not advisable, because
Who told you that?
to leave out on a major street like that is something that will be problematic.
Well, who told you that? Where did you get that advice from? Not your attorney. I
No,
hope.
not my attorney. Not
Okay.
my attorney. This
You
was
need to fire him.
one of my architects that I had.
Well, that's not really true, because you got a lot of businesses. Remember, you got a limousine place that leads right out into a main
Right next
thoroughfare
door,
on
yeah.
Irene Kidd next door.
Mhm.
Then you have right next, like less than a block, you have the plumbing company that leads right out into Irene Kidd, and then you have houses right there on that corner as well, right? So I don't know where that advice came from, but I'm just saying that I would think that even if it's just a one way or whatever, like they come in and they can go out. And the reason why I say that, because remember that dump truck that comes in there, even to pick up a dumpster for the city trash, they're not gonna be able to back up or maneuver. So if they come in and pick up the trash, they need to continue to move forward or go, you understand that? To
Yes.
back up will be hazardous. So we're trying to make sure that if you get an emergency vehicle come in there, you got to have the safety of those people, that they come in, they can go out the other way, or they can continue to go around. But if you only have them, then they got to figure out how they're going to back up and how they're going to maneuver. And if you're trying to save somebody's life, that's a lot of moving around. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, I understand exactly what you're saying.
I think it will work.
I have some alternate plans that actually have that. So
Okay. All right.
I mean, we can redirect if need be.
All right. So I don't know. We're just here for the zoning part tonight, and I'm just, when it comes back up, these are some of the questions council is going to ask in order for this to be a favorable project, because of because that one way in, one way. I really do think that you should have two-way in, that kind of stuff.
I am absolutely on board with that. Like I said, that's what initially I wanted to do, but they said Irene Kidd was not a good street to come on. So
You got too many businesses, and you have a daycare center that leads right out into,
Yeah, it
which
is.
is run. I mean, we talking about, you can see it from your place. You have a daycare center that you can see right diagonally from you.
You're right.
So, I mean, you have all of that right there. So I don't understand the logic behind that. And they lead right into Irene Kidd. And then you have the townhomes that sits right in front of Irene Kidd on East Cleveland. Could be West Cleveland, but it's either, you know what I'm saying? So, and all of those people feed right into that, or are in Martin. So I'm not really clear on the instructions that you were given.
yeah, it seems like the instructions I was
'Cause-
given were incorrect, but we can.
You have
can
major
correct that.
concerns, though, that I have to talk to you offline, but that egress right there in that corner, you got major concerns. But are you putting a fence in the back?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you, I yield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. I'm really excited about this development in Ward B, residential townhomes here. And also, I know that you've been attending some of the East Washington meetings. How have the residents felt about this project?
Everybody's everybody's very excited about this. You know, I am too, because, you know, this is something that I take personal.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, nice presentation, and I'm looking forward to seeing some continued progress. Are these for sale or for rent, and how much what are some of your prices you're looking for? I heard you say this was going to be affordable.
Yeah, well, considering the, and I hate to pivot like this, but considering the construction costs and like the different variables, like I just found out that sprinkler systems are mandatory, and that is a hefty cost that's going to be added. So if I give you a price that, oh yeah, we're going to build it like at this price, then I found out that there's some other things that's going to affect that. So the best thing I can tell you, Councilman, is that they will be market value.
Are these just again? Are these 2 1s, 3 2s? How's it?
There'll be 3, 2.5.
Okay. Are you, Madam Mayor? Thank you.
This is for staff, but hold on, Mr. Peel. How many, per our zoning ordinances, how many units? Half an acre is not a lot of land. How many units can go?
The East Cleveland overlay allow for 12 units
Okay, 12.
on an acre.
So that would be 6 on a half acre. This is 7.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's actually 12 on the half of acre, excuse me.
Say it again?
It's 12 on the half acre.
Oh, you sure it's 12 on a half acre and not 12 on an acre? You want to get back to me on that? Because initially you said 12
We did
on
the
an acre.
calculation.
Huh?
I misspoke. We did
12
the
on-
calculation. It's 12 on the half acre, or the 0.53 acres.
This seems, I don't even, what, I guess they would stack them back to back. Is that what y'all anticipating? Like back to back? Townhomes, because this is 7 and there's absolutely, I mean, the only way you get more is to stack them back to back. I don't know. It just seems quite high, but it sounds like he's within it. There was another question I had. Can't remember. Yeah, it won't come to me now. Okay. So this requires a public hearing, so it'll be on our agenda for Monday for a public hearing. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Oh yeah, it's a virus. So treeless right away. This can be really quick. Last time we talked, this is really about preventative measures for addressing the number of power outages that we have that are caused by trees. And there are a couple of things that have come up from the residents questions that have come out about whether or not we can have an arborist go out and provide support to residents, like inspect their trees, kind of like we do when we have people go out and look at their electric usage or utility, like kind of do an inspection. As it relates to the trees, understand that the residents will still have to remove them. The other is, there are a lot of trees hanging over into right-of-ways, and I know we have a tree trimming crew for that. And then, the outages that we've had, I've seen like a lot of large trees in our right-of-way, so they're not on private property, they're like on the right-of-way. Are those causing problems, or what can we do from a proactive stance? And I think the other was, is there any type of assistance that can be provided as it relates to addressing trees that might be problematic or become problematic from a preventative perspective? Because when they fall, we take them out. And so we had a discussion about this, I think, last month at the work session, Want to hear if there are any updates. So thank you all for being patient. And so, Mr. King, I see Mr. Magnus and another staff member here tonight.
Yes, yes, Madam Mayor, Council, we have EJ Hall, who's our professional arborist.
Oh, so sorry.
And then also Thomas Magnus, our
Okay, you
assistant
are Ms.
director as
Magnus.
well.
Yeah,
Go
EJ
right
Hall.
ahead, go right ahead.
Got it. Thank you.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I have EJ here, Hall here to assist us with the questions about the treeless right away. EJ can come on.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Late evening. So just to kind of, I guess, reiterate some things real briefly that Sean Dow mentioned, there is no official city arborist. However, I'm the only qualified arborist employed by the city that also has a credential to do tree risk assessments. So I do that on a case-by-case basis for citizens, kind of under the radar. But just to kind of give you an update on where we're at right now monetarily, we've removed about 37 trees, all of which are on private property. And that's taken place since July 1 to October. Since then, I have spent 30 hours approximately riding around, walking around, assessing trees, again, all on private property that pose a potential hazard to our main circuits. And I've identified 40 more trees. With that being said, financially, it's not going to happen, those trees being removed with the current funding. So I see that there is a budget amendment that hopefully will take place where the other issues can be mitigated. But there's no trees been found on city right-of-way, which is not even owned by the city. Now that's street right-of-ways. There's no electrical right-of-way that we own that we say, hey, this is ours. There's street right-of-ways that are proposed for street improvements, sidewalk implementations, things of that nature. And so there's not been one tree that I found in this time period. Last physical budget year, I did remove one tree, outsourced it, that was on, if you're familiar with, there's proposed Dorsey Avenue that runs between Kimmeridge and Cloverhurst. That was a street that never was put in. It's actually owned by the city. There was one tree there that was a hazard tree that we removed last fiscal budget year. So with that being said, most of the trees that we remove, we've removed like 15 with our internal tree trimming crews. And that's only because I err on the side of caution and do not want to put our city equipment in people's yards to remove trees, because you're going to open up a big can of worms with questions and phone calls and things of that nature. So if we can reach it from the street, we will address it. Outside of that, we got a Kendall vegetation maintenance company that we have on an hourly basis that we've used to take care of 40 of the trees that have been removed so far. So with that being said, like I said, the 25 remaining trees are going to be outsourced because they're going to require crane removals, and the city doesn't have a crane. So that's where we stand on that. So.
You do some assessments, but I'm assuming that's not your primary responsibility. So that's a challenge. So if we wanted to consider providing that service to residents, it either have to be from having a consultant do another contractor do it, or hiring a full-time arborist.
Yeah, I'm spread too thin already.
Yeah,
I've had to spend time after hours doing the 30 hours of assessment that I've done since October. So,
okay.
And like I said, it's a lot of walking, more than driving. I've had to get somebody pretty much to drive a pickup and follow me down the streets while I assess trees.
So the 40 are throughout the city?
Excuse me?
The 40 trees that you additional 40 trees that you identified, they're throughout the city?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I've completed all of Oakley substation circuits, all of Grove substation circuits, and Ben Hill 1 and 2.
Okay.
I've got remaining Ben Hill 3 to take care of, and then Lakemont substation.
Okay.
So everything in the southwest portion of the city,
So you're doing it
along
based-
with the Welcome All circuits, which feeds that portion of the city as well, Marketplace and Heritage Park area, and then the Riverline circuit, which feeds our filter plant and the pumping station.
So you're doing it based upon substation. That's smart. Like because if they take out something around there, that's a huge issue. Okay. And then you said there's recommended funding in the budget amendment that we need to consider. Okay.
Yes.
And also too, I've been in contact, Sean and myself, with a company called AI Dash. That's it's an intelligent satellite-based vegetation maintenance company. So basically what they do is from a satellite, they'll scan the entire area. And with that, you get several benefits. For us, we're fortunate enough with the 2 internal city crews and the one other Kendall crew that we don't have any growth-related power outages. We're doing a real good job. We try to maintain about a 3-year tree trimming cycle to keep all the lines maintained for tree growth. So we don't have any growth-related outages. It's all limb failures and whole tree failures. The thing about the AI Dash is you see bigger electrical distribution like Georgia Power, where they're needing to try to focus funding in certain areas for their tree trimming. They're utilize that benefit a lot better. But the other benefit that the satellite vegetation maintenance does is it monitors the chlorophyll ratings on the trees so that it compiles data basically, and it can actually flag a tree that can potentially take out or harm your system and your infrastructure. The downside to it is the chlorophyll rates can decline because of drought conditions or other conditions. It does not necessarily mean that the health of the tree is in a state of decline. So really it takes 4 or 5 years worth of data collection to finally get to a point where you can say, okay, you might need to go out here and look at this particular tree. But the benefit of it is there's a lot of green space in East Point, and I'm one person. And so having this on board, it runs about $60,000 a year is what this company is going to charge to do 1 scan. I questioned them because I read their booklet, and their booklet said they recommend 2 scans a year. And he was trying to say, no, I recommend 1. I was like, well, your booklet says 2. So, but anyway, that would be something to kind of help, because it would actually, you got to look at it this way. East Point only has a lot of trees. They got a lot of tall trees. If you got a 40-foot power pole, you got a lot of trees that are 125, 150 foot tall. Trees that are back 75 to 100 foot away from our power lines can still potentially take out our system. So, you know, with that being said, I can only look at so many trees. Having this would help. Like I said, but it's a long-term process. It's something that's going to actually play out more in the future. They do drones, and they do. Georgia Power currently uses a LiDAR, which is it's called VBMS instead of the IVMS. So the intelligent versus the radar, they're moving toward the rate of the satellite and getting away from the drones and the radar. It's not been as effective.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Cook.
I'm looking. Does the assistant director want to reveal this other little surprise that you know that I know, or should I say it for everyone?
I'm sorry, Councilman Cook. What was that question?
I'll let the cat out the bag now. So let me just put it out there, and then you back me up. I just happened to be in earshot of a conversation the arborist was having with the man next to him and their boss. And I was actually shocked when I heard the news of how much money we have already spent in this year's budget dealing with the tree issue.
Well, yes, by the end of the year, we will have depleted our, normally it would carry us through one fiscal year, but we have depleted that. That's why we question more money in the budget amendment.
And since the money that we spent is so large, I'm going to give you the privilege to tell the council how much money we've already spent.
Well, total, I believe, what it's been around
About 200 out
About-
of 250.
250,000. Yes.
250,000?
Yes, sir.
About 200 of the 250.
Yes.
Can we
But
eat up
that
the budget
includes
pretty
our
fast?
hourly crew that's here on a weekly basis, which runs on average about $6,000 a week.
Yes.
So
And it's an ongoing thing. You don't seem to be able to even put a dent in the forest, let alone clear it.
No, because lately we have taken a very aggressive approach with taking down these trees. EJ has done an amazing job with, he took it upon himself to start this project once Mayor brought up the treeless right away, and he has done an amazing job with all his findings. So, hey, we well on our way, and what that has gotten us is broke.
Is there anything based on what you've already done? Is there anything that you think would help if you could do more of it? It's kind of a simple question, but I realize you guys have a real sophisticated way you do this.
Now, the only thing we can do is keep beating the path that we're on, you know? That's all we can do.
It's almost a case of we spend money to cut down trees or we lose money because they're ripping up the power lines.
Right, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Correct.
Great update. I look forward to the discussion in the budget amendment, which is coming soon. Discussion on whistleblower process. We're supposed to be looking at third-party options to, and putting a policy in place. Mr. King, the ordinance says it should be a financial policy. We have an ordinance for whistleblower where the policy and the solicitation for engaging a third-party company as it relates to the whistleblower process. Number 18 whistleblower process.
Madam Mayor, with respect to the whistleblower process, you do have the ordinance, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is from 2003. I mean, it's an old
Right.
ordinance. We don't have an operational policy or phone number or process.
Exactly.
The
So-
last flyer I saw, I called a number, it don't work.
No, it doesn't. So we had a meeting with Granicus, who was actually providing the short-term stuff.
Oh,
who-
short term. That's
right,
what you're saying.
who indicated that they have that ability. But I know that Ms. Hammond, who's meeting with me with Granicus, had some other ideas because she said that she had done research in Nashville, had something that was different that she liked. So I know that she's working on it. I can certainly get an update from her and report back to this body.
Yes, if we can get a written update as to where we are, we need to get this in place like as soon as possible. And so it's been on the work session several times. Maybe we put it on the December 4th meeting. Because if there's any action that this council needs to take, we need to do that so that it can move forward. So, Madam Deputy City Clerk, December 4th council agenda for 18 and 19. This brings up my question I forgot to ask in the financial update. Where are we with the forensic audit? Because these two are connected.
Madam Mayor, I wasn't in contact with the forensic auditor. I don't know if they were going to reach out directly to the city attorney, because I remember when they came before us, they said they're going to do.
We approved them on October the 2nd. We're now at like November the 13th. Like council approved engaging Plant Moran on October the 2nd. Let me make sure I got my meeting dates right. It's first meeting in October. Yeah, October the 2nd. We're like 45 days in. And
If I may, Madam Mayor, Plant Moran actually was looking to, asked to speak with myself and somebody from finance. So Ms. Hammond called me and said that she would meet with me with them on next week by Zoom. They're putting together a procedure and process that they want to submit to this body, not this body, but submit to the city for consideration. And that's my understanding that we're going to be having that conversation about.
Engagement letter been finalized?
Engagement letter, I believe it was finalized once you guys signed it, because I looked at it. I only had one concern. They were out of Michigan, and their jurisdictional issues, they wanted it to be resolved in Michigan. I was, so after I did that, I'm pretty sure I sent it back to them to say it was fine with me. After that, I'll double check that. I'll check with Mr. Hammond, and I'll get this body an update on that piece.
I mean, council has already approved it, so
Yes,
if it's
ma'am.
final, I just need to sign it.
Okay.
Like, it's October 2nd to November 13th. I don't recall signing this, especially not after a change. So if we can get that moving, because this is connected to the internal auditor. Court administration, I see we have a memo from the city attorney. I haven't had a chance to look at it. I don't know if we want to discuss this tonight or put it on the December work session agenda. All right.
And Madam Mayor, just so you know, Chief Judge Oliver is not well, so she's not here this evening.
Okay, we'll be definitely checking in on it. Next up is budget amendment. Mr. King.
Come on forward. Shannon Golden will give overview.
This discussion on ordinance for changing street names. Do we have, I know we got an ordinance before and it had a whole lot of stuff that.
We did, Madam Mayor. I changed that ordinance and redistributed it. You all talking about the one that had the $2,500 in there?
It's a whole lot of things.
All right, I took that part out, added in there that and what Chris, I think, was trying to accomplish was that Mr. Swain was trying to accomplish was having the applicant be responsible for the distribution, for the notification, things of publication. So I just kind of put some of the language in there. I did distribute it. I can redistribute it to this body.
So let's put it on the December work session. I don't think it's time sensitive, given the action that we've already taken. But I see Mr. Swain coming forward. I get it. He's been waiting patiently. I don't know if you want to add anything. We're gonna place it on December work session agenda. You're fine? Okay. All right, budget amendment number 1.
All
Mr.
right,
King.
come on forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. We have Shannon Golden give a brief overview of budget amendment number 1.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Finance is providing a budget amendment for FY24, the first one of FY24.
Is there a presentation or something that we can look at?
For this budget amendment, we are increasing the adopted budget of $191,396,602 to $209,413,130, which is an increase of about $18,016,528. Of that amount, our general fund we're increasing our general fund by $3,881,076. That includes an increase in our loss of about $1 million. We had other revenue in the amount of $500,000 for our insurance premium tax and our property damage reimbursement. So we had revenues from that of $323,000. We also had increase in revenue for the right-of-way sales of $141,500, and The other amount is coming from transfer from our fund balance of $1,774,395. So for expenditures as it relates to the general fund, where we are spending those or increasing those budget items, of course, with our council, we have council communications in the amount of 15,000. We have also increased the budget for the forensic audit as well as FY23 possible fees for that of 200,000. With our building and grounds, we have a landscaping contract for $228,000. And then we also amended the budget for the Men of Intelligence for 105, which we have a contract that we're making sure that it was amended into this budget. We have contingencies of $350,000. Our Park and Rec director came up, and so we also have included in his budget for park signage of $55,000. Our planning and zoning department has permitting consultants, so they're asking for $100,000 for that. And then we have transfers out to both capital projects as well as IT and customer care in the amount of $2,674,076. So our restricted grants, we've had a number of grants that we have to amend in this budget. As you can see, our grants total about $2,535,862. It's a various grants from CDBG 23 renewals with CDBG CV, our Public Works grant. We also have the Eye in the Sky grant, which was 1.6 for our police. Also, we have for our bulletproof vest, 20,000, and we have other police grants that we're amending in this budget, as well as our art grants. And those same revenues are also our same expenditures for our grants. For our capital improvement fund, part of the funding for capital improvement fund comes from the general fund of 2.3 million. We have from the restricted grants, 1.6 million. That's our Eye in the Sky grant that we are using for our police, for the security cameras around the city. Also included in those expenditures for our capital improvement, we have courts that have 33,000 for security upgrades. Our fire department is looking to purchase a fire engine, which that has a back order on, so we want to get ahead of that. We are concerned about bay doors at some of the fire stations, and also breathing apparatuses as it relates to those types of equipment that our firefighters use. Our police have 1.8 million. Of that, 1.62 million of it is for our security cameras, the Eye in the Sky. 250,000 is for body cameras. Planning and zoning has 174,000 for vehicles, as well as the kiosk, permitting kiosk installation. Park and Rec, they mentioned some improvements that they're trying to make to various park capital projects. So they have a 264,000 as it relates to that. And there are also some other public art projects as it relates to that. For our water and sewer fund, we're transferring in $1 million from our fund balance. They had unspent ARPA funds from prior years, so we're rolling that $2.4 million of ARPA funds into their revenue for expenditures as it relates to infrastructure. Our electric fund is also using the transfer in from fund balance of 1.7 million. Those are for operational and capital projects. Tree clearing is 200,000, as Thomas has mentioned. They have also capital projects for transformers and also construction and contract services of $800,000. Our stormwater is also taking in our fund balance transfer in of 2.5 million. Water and Sewer Director has identified that we need 2 new street sweepers, so this will fund the 2 street sweepers as well as 7 infrastructure projects as relates to stormwater. Our IT department has $170,000 as it relates to their Dell and other hardware for other departments that they need to purchase, as well as other professional fees. And our customer care also has the transfer in from the general fund of $147,076, where we're funding those capital projects that were approved by mayor and council. As I stated earlier, our funds are moving from, adopted funds are moving from 191 million to 209 million, which is a change of $18,016,528. Of that, like I said, general fund is changing, increasing 3.8 million. Water and sewer is increasing 3.4 million. Electric utility 1.7, stormwater 2.5. And our capital projects are 3.9 and restricted grants are 2.5, giving us $209,413,130.
Councilmember Renee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had a quick question. I believe this is one of the first slides. They had council communication. They added $15,000 to the budget.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't know I was unaware that we had council communication. And now they're adding it to the budget. What do we do with that?
Those are for robocalls. We have a number of robocalls that increase, so we have to cover those expenses as relates to that.
Okay, another thing too, Airbnb, I see what short-term rentals, I'm sorry. For short-term rentals, I saw the hotel and motel taxes, but I didn't see where we were collecting taxes for short-term rentals in the budget. Are we collecting any short-term rental taxes for our Airbnb?
Yes, we are collecting those short-term rentals for Airbnb. There are a number of other platforms that we do collect them.
I shouldn't say Airbnb, I apologize. I should be saying short-term rentals, please forgive me.
Yeah, we have a number of short-term rental platforms that we do collect that tax.
I didn't see it in the budget. Where is it listed at? Because, residents do want to know, like, how are we, where are we collecting our dollars from? I mean, like, how many taxes are we collecting from? I didn't see a line item for that one at all.
Well, it's kind of hard to determine what that dollar amount is going to be.
Okay.
So I didn't make any changes to our hotel motel tax revenue.
Okay.
Yeah, so probably in the future budget amendment, we can look at that and make that change.
I also, in our park and recreation, I know that they also like charge for certain activities. I didn't see a line item for the park and recreation. Is that in there? I might have been an oversight for for the amount of fees that they're collecting, because they have these basketball tournaments and games and stuff like that. So they collect, I didn't see any money from the recreation, and they do exceptionally well. Is there a line item for the recreation department?
We do have line items for those recreational services,
Yes,
but it will be on a more detailed budget. So when we summarize the budget and when I look at it, if it doesn't reach, a certain level in the budget, as if we were projecting like it would go over the budget, we don't amend that or increase that revenue.
Do we have like an appropriate, approximate number? Like, do they collect $500 a year? Do we? I don't know how to ask the question.
Well, with that line item is small, so when I look at the totality of,
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I yield. I yield.
Council, I don't see you guys. So, Councilmember Renee?
I'd like to know, like, so the additional $15,000 for the robocalls, when we say council communication, what does that look like for the other council members who may want to use other forms of communications other than robocalls? I wasn't aware of that, that they were just for robocalls. Because council communication could be like newsletters. I don't know. Other people may want to do other things. So I'm not really clear, and maybe that's a question.
She should have.
One at a time.
Okay.
I'm gonna come to Councilmember Shropshire, Councilmember Bailey, Councilmember Butler.
And I don't mean no disrespect. I really don't. I'm just asking a question.
I know, and it should have been addressed like that, instead of saying it's specifically for that, because I think everybody knows that I'm the one that does robocalls to inform people, residents, about what's going on. So it should have been addressed like council communication, because at one point, we had we had that in the budget because we used to do newsletters that used to go out, and that would come out of council communication. So instead of the city clerk specifically making it seem like it's just solely addressed for that, it should have been addressed for any communication that any council person wants to do.
Okay, so it appears that that budget item that account is overdrawn. So the only thing that we've been using for that is robocalls.
No, I've been using my council, my communication, because every council get a communication for that.
So so that's a good statement. So is the council communication, is it divided up between all council? Is it available for all council to use it? Or is it just for a particular communication? Because that's where it's coming confusing for me right now. So that's why I was asking, like, could other council members use it? Because right now it looks like the account is overdrawn because we used a lot of robocalls. And if I'm saying it wrong, then I apologize, but that's what it appears to come off right now. And so I'm asking, like, because it's 8 of us with communication, because I just want to know, like, is it open to everybody, or is there a budget for everybody with the communication? That's it right there.
Yeah, in that line item, it's in the council committee line item. So it could be used for all council members, I believe.
So how is it divided up then? So, like, for instance, like how are the funds for the communication divided up? How is that divided up among all council so that it's fair among all council? Because I was not aware of it.
Okay, well, I don't have the details of that. I mean, I'll have to talk to the city clerk and get the details of how that's divvied up between all council members, but it was, instructed to me that, hey, we need to look at adding 15,000 to communications for council.
Okay, so I'm asking this because this is a vote for the council, I guess. Right, it's absolutely. This should be up to council how communication is it divided up between all 8 of us, and then we determine how our communication dollars are spent. Is that the will of the council, or is it just sitting in an account and then we are just not aware? I don't know. I yield. I think some other lights on. I yield, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Shropshire, Councilmember Bailey, Councilmember Butler, Councilmember, they said Bailey and Butler, then Gordon and Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is about the line item as far as city council, city clerk. I guess it's all mixed together? Like
Well-
it's together, city clerk and city
Yeah,
council?
because city clerk, it reports to city council, so, yeah, but I will be able to make the distinction of that budget item. I would say, hey, this is city council, or this is city clerk item in that line item.
I understand. I yield, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Butler. I yield. Councilmember Gordon, Councilmember Robinson.
Thank you. So my question is regarding the $15,000. So if the $15,000 is what the amendment request is, what was the budget?
I don't have that in front of me right now, but I can get that detail for you.
Okay, so we don't know what the budget is, but it's in excess now 15,000.
Yes.
And
Well, I guess the city clerk wanted to make sure that enough funds were in that line item to make sure it doesn't go over budget.
so it's not over budget,
It's probably not over budget, but they want to make sure that it doesn't go over budget.
but we don't know tonight what the budget is. So it's not the two.
Councilmember Gordon, Robinson, then I come back.
I still have another question. Okay. So are we saying that what is already spent in the budget? I guess I'm just confused because, well, my thing is this, we have an $1,800 communications budget
Mhm.
per council member, correct? Or approximately that.
Somewhere, yes.
So we had another pool of money that could be used for communications, is what you're saying?
Well, the city clerk identified this communication item and said that it needed 15 grand in there to make sure that
So-
it doesn't go over budget.
Okay, so my thought is, and this isn't really directed to you, Mr. Golden, to keep in alignment with what I think Councilmember Renee was getting at is, then why not just increase everybody's communication budget from 1,800 to some other number rather than whatever this pool of money is that none of us knew about until now? To me, that would make more sense.
So the 1,800 that you're referring to is the ward, I think it's an expense amount by ordinance. So in order to increase that 1,800, I think it's 1,800 for council, 2,000 for mayor, that would require an ordinance amendment. So I think they're talking about a different line item, but that one that you're referring to is set. So they can't increase that one. Well, we can. Let me say,
Right,
they
that's-
can't. We can by ordinance, changing the ordinance.
Right, and that's what I was
amending the
referring
ordinance.
to. To me, I think that would be probably the most feasible way and fair way to make sure everyone had a balanced amount of money per, as you stated, per the line item, if that's what we're gonna do, because I certainly wasn't aware of this money being utilized for this purpose. So thank you. That's my thought about it.
Councilmember Robinson, Councilmember Butler, Councilmember Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to piggyback, quick point of clarification. So there's $1,800 that we have for communications, and there's another a budget for communications as well. Is that what I'm hearing or not hearing? Is that correct?
I believe that's what the city clerk has in mind, yes.
I'm just asking for a point of clarification. I heard one of my colleagues state that there's a $1,800 council allocation per council member. And then I'm hearing there's another area where there's funds allocated for communication for council. So that's two separate areas. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing? City manager and others? How does this work? Because I'm just trying to get a point of clarification.
Right.
Because
Right. So with this item, like I said, the city clerk pointed out that it was a communication that needed to be added to the budget of 15,000. Now, how that's divvied up, I don't know how the city clerk may have allocated it, but this is what she indicated that needed to be added to the budget to make sure that communication doesn't go over budget.
So my question just to the universe, if, is that basically if I wanted to do a mail out to tell my people, my residents, that there's something going on in the newsletter, or if I want to do a robocall, that's my choice? Is that what I'm hearing? Universe, that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Because we need a point of clarification because apparently there's new information that I think half of us are finding out.
So section 2-2010C says effective immediately, each council member will have $1,800 for supplies, consumable communicating materials with residents, and the cost of participation in the city cell phone plan. That's the $1,800 that you all are referencing. And that's what it says it's used for. Okay, Councilmember Butler, Councilmember Cook, and then second round of Councilmember Renee.
So my question is, how much have we spent in robocalls thus far?
I will have to get that number for you, Councilman Butler.
My next question is, which council members have used the council communication budget thus far?
I will have to get that information from the city clerk.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cook.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the problems with this report, and it's kind of obvious now as you listen to the question, this particular page is not a reflection of the budget detail. Okay, so that's the first problem. Because as a general rule, when you're talking about your general fund, at the top, you got all the revenue categories. And at the bottom, you actually have larger expense categories, but you're only showing money that's actually been spent. If you want to see the allocation for council people, the best place to find that is go to the master budget. Go to the respective section where you have council expense, which I think it also includes our salary income. And it's broken down by wards. And there's two subcategories. One for the council person who is at large, and one for the council member who's ward specific. And what you try to do during the course of the year is take expenses generated by council members and first just lump in a general category, which is what you've done right here. Because when you add up everything that's allotted to us, there's a whole lot more money than what you're showing here for expenses.
Correct.
And that's what you're doing for this one particular case. But this does not represent a summary of council members' expenses. No, council members' allocations.
Correct.
Okay. Because expenses would be how much of that allocation we have actually used.
Correct.
All right.
Councilmember Renee.
All right, so, my motion, because we don't really have a good understanding of how the communication budget is for the city council, I think we could always amend the budget and bring it back for a better understanding of what that looks like for everybody, to be fair across the board. We could either vote to have the 15,000 split among the 8 council members. Madam Mayor, I don't know if you have a budget. Do you have a budget for communication? Okay, you have professional fees. All right, so the mayor wouldn't need it. So that could be one way of doing it. Or we could absolutely remove it from the account, from the budget tonight and have a better discussion on it in December. And then that way, you could bring back the numbers of what we all look like for the city council budget to show like how we can be more effective in communicating with our residents. To show like what it looks like for communications for each council members. I think Mr. Butler asked what was being spent. I just think that 15,000, what we would want to know, like what would be the total amount, and how would it be fair across the board? So we have two options. We could vote to divide it up, right, for each council member, or we can vote to remove it from the budget tonight. And I yield, because there may be some other people with more discussion. I yield, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Bailey, Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the information that you're sharing. I would like more information similar to what Councilmember Karen Renee just mentioned regarding the need for the additional 15,000. I understand that all the line items, you place those together. I would like for them to be separate, possibly per council member. I don't know if you go to that detail, but I haven't used the 15,000 and I don't want to be aligned to using communication for robocalls. I don't want to be connected to that.
Okay.
Thank you. I yield, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Gordon, Councilmember Cook, Councilmember.
Thank you. I agree with council members, the Ward B council members, because it's not even just a matter of the 15,000. What's the budget? I think we need to know what the budget is, how much of that has been spent, and why there is some level of foresight or forecasting that we need an additional 15,000 to go along with what's already budgeted. We don't even know what's budgeted. Nobody seems to have been spending money from this particular budget for communications, except for one use. So I think that it's only fair we know what the budget amount is, what's been spent, what it's been spent on, and why there's a forecast for 15,000 more dollars.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cook, Councilmember Sharp.
Okay, the way this conversation is going is almost a case of we got 15,000, but who's responsible for spending most of it? So if we want to spend half of the night discussing that issue, you can go ahead and do that. But let's just be practical about this whole process. We got a budget here that the finance division needs to keep current with the way the city's doing business. We need to make an amendment to the total budget of, make sure I got the number right, something like $18 million.
That's correct.
$18 million.
Correct.
All right, so if you want to stand here the rest of the night and talk about who spent the $15,000 on robocall, you can do that if you want to. But we need to amend this budget. We need to give the finance division the opportunity to amend this budget so we can continue to do business like we do. And we amend this budget because, number one, we know we're going to be amending the budget. We average about 4 amendments a year. We actually get cited for, number one, even having a budget for city outsides. And for number two, tried to make sure that at the end of the year, we don't have to cut off a leg to balance the budget. Okay? Now, granted, we got a valid argument as to whether or not more people are taking advantage of the expense amount for communication. And that's fine. Work it out. But we're not going to sit here and hold up the amendment for a budget that has $18 million being added to it. Let's be real, folks. Let's be real. I yield, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I think it was poorly said when it was said it was for robocall.
I apologize, Councilman
And
Shropshire.
if that's how the city clerk told you, then that was wrong on her part. Because it's not for that. And really, you would want to be tied into a robocall because it's informing residents about what's going on in the community. That's part of the communication.
Point of order 7.
The mayor gave me the floor and I'm speaking.
So-
Point of order
so-
7.
Okay. Let me pull out my rules. Hold on, Councilmember Shropshire.
Point
There's
of
a
order
point-
7.
You gonna let me talk?
Mm-mm.
Because as the presiding.
Point of
officer-
order
As
7.
the presiding officer, I'm about to read the rule. Okay? Members recognized. Every member prior to speaking or making a motion shall be recognized by the presiding officer and shall not proceed with his or her remarks until recognized and named by the chair. When 2 or more members request recognition, the presiding officer shall name the council member who is to speak first. Council members shall confine remarks to the subject matter under debate, avoiding personal comments directed at other members and refraining from impugning the motives of any other council member's comments or votes. No council member may interrupt another council member except to raise a point of order. So the point of order was made at the point that Councilmember Shropshire said you would want to be a part of a robocall because it informs the residents. Because there's no debate on this, I would have to assume why Councilmember Bailey called the point of order, and maybe it is the part about members shall confine remarks to the subject under debate, avoiding personal comments directed at other members and or refraining from impugning the motives of any other council members' comments or votes. The rule deals with the person being recognized at the time Councilmember Shropshire was speaking. So Councilmember Shropshire, as the person that I had recognized to speak, you may continue to speak, but refrain from confine the remarks to the subject under debate and avoid personal comments directed at other members and or refrain from impugning the motives of any other council member comments or votes. Go ahead, Councilmember Shropshire.
Thank you. And again, before I was interrupted, we don't have to, you can take it out and the city clerk can come and explain it better as to what it is and what it's for, because what was put out there as if it was for one thing, when it's not, it's for overall. And if at the end of the day, if you all want to say, this is what each person get for times that 15, that's fine. But we can, if you can just take it out, we can move forward. I don't have time to go back and forth with non-factors. Thank you.
I yield. I'm fine.
So, this is work session. It could be by vote. It sounds like there's consensus. I don't know if the city manager would prefer a vote as it relates to removing that item out of the budget amendment, so such that you all can have a budget amendment prepared and ready for Monday. It sounds like that's a consensus of council, and we've done things in that way before. But if you all want to vote, you could take a motion. It's a public meeting, so it's been noticed for the public to be here, so you could take action as it relates to that, because it's just amending information within a document that ultimately will be finalized. So is the motion preferred, Mr. King?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I do want to go ahead with this because we do have some other key items on that docket. So if you want to amend the amendment, we can come back with the clerk and I'll have a discussion with him. We can do that. That's a easier pivot.
So you're just gonna take it out?
We can, and we come back.
Okay.
We can come back with that. That's not a heavy lift for us, considering the tally of what we have. But for the other items we have that we've mentioned before, we definitely want to have that going forward and keep that rolling, and particularly grants as well.
All right. Next item, turkey giveaway, Councilmember Renee.
I mean, I'm gonna make it real brief. This was already approved in the budget. I just wanted to, is this Saturday? So I just wanted to get the approval from council, and I should have did it last Monday, and I apologize. Approval from council to work with the city staff to help and assist with the annual turkey giveaway at Jefferson Park. Thank you.
It's already in the budget, so that's approval is already there if it's a turkey giveaway that's been approved in the budget. But Councilmember Gordon.
I yield. I was going to speak to that point as well, so it's okay.
No, I mean, I think in the council events, there's itemization of different events that have already been approved. So there's a motion on the floor in a second. So if it's not withdrawn, I'll call the question. If it's withdrawn, I won't call the question. Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Next up, integrity of the 2023 municipal elections. Councilmember Renee.
Madam Mayor, I know it's late, but there were some things that were.
Oh, I keep skipping one.
You want to go back?
Rick, because I think this will be quicker. Your discussion might be quicker than the other one. I skipped number 44. There's a change order of $150,000 for the city auditorium.
Yes, Madam Mayor, this is not a heavy lift at all. What I've got here is Winter Johnson Group. We're at a point now where with the Winter Johnson Group, they're about to provide the pre-construction services for the city auditorium. And so we've had meetings with them. We're actually going to also pivot and have a direct relationship with the architect, which is Moody Nolan, which allow us to have more inspections done on the site, which is what we wanted. So what you have here is they provided for the reduction of what would have been the remaining design work with the Moody Nolan firm, and then also for the item which is for the cost for the GMP, which is the guaranteed maximum price, which is 1144, and we're going to do a new cost estimation for that with the current vendor, which is the current architect, that is. So it's really what it all comes down to. It's the 150 for the pre-construction, which include cost estimations, include a job fair that we're going to have to try to get local vendors involved and local contractors. It's also going to be for hosting of another of activities. And so before we go to the construction, because we're almost done with the design. And so this is basically for 150 for the pre-construction services prior to going through construction process for the Winter Johnson Group.
So I'm confused because you said there's a different architect. So did we do a solicitation? And you said $150,000 for information fairs. So I'm really confused.
Well, it's the same architect we've got on board now, Moody Nolan, and it's based.
Was that done through solicitation?
Pardon? Well, this is going to be a sole source because they've already done the actual design. They're just it's just pivoting. The reporting is coming to the city. So the architect initially was reporting under design build, so service delivery. Now they'll be, which would mean they were reporting to the architect. The problem with that was we want to make sure that the inspections were done properly. So Winter Johnson was willing to allow us to go ahead and contract, which will be coming to you at a later meeting, to contract directly with Moody Nolan. And then we'll be overseeing doing the inspections of the project while it's going under construction and all the other details that come with it as well. And so what you have here is the 150 is part of what they call the pre-construction services. And that's being done. I'm looking at your head. I'm just trying to make sure I'm getting your.
I'm listening, but it's 6 figures, and I'm just trying to figure out the itemization. But there are some other council members that have their lights on too. So have you finished your statement and then go to Councilman Butler and
Well, there is always pre-construction that's done by the contractor prior to going forward. There's a number of things that go with that whole process. I was just naming some of those that are in that process. So this change order will allow for us to move forward in the area of contracting directly with the architect, which is Moody Nolan, and then at the same time provide for the approval of the change order, which will give us the pre-construction services directly with the contractor, which is the Winter Johnson Group.
Madam Mayor, if I just might give some, there was some communication difficulty between some of the parties and our city manager's office, and so the city attorney's office got involved, and that's what spurred what you have in front of you. I did look at it. I have talked with the city manager about it, and probably everybody else at nauseam. They probably tired of talking about it. So, but I wanted you all to understand that just didn't appear. It was as a result of a difficulty in conversation. I think what happens now, it will definitely give you all the level of comfort that you want in making sure that the auditorium looks the way you want it to. I just wanted to give that clarity.
I appreciate that clarity. I'm just trying to figure out how we can anticipate pre-construction costs to the point that now we're doing $150,000 anything. But Councilman Butler.
I think I can help with that answer. First of all, I want to commend the city manager on this issue. There are two things that happen. The first thing is the reason why Artis Johnson has that, and then we have that architect, is because all of that contract came under the development and building of this building. So that's why no other RFPs or anything was going out, because it's part 2 of this contract. The next thing is whether the difficulty in communication was, and I appreciate the city manager, Mr. King, for standing his ground, is with inflation and with a contract that had been signed years ago, there would have been an issue if the GC controlled the architect, which controls the quality and the price of what's being constructed. And what the fear was is that if you control the architect, which is really supposed to be the gatekeeper for us, that comes back and inspects what's done and makes sure our expectations are being met, then the GC gets to come in and maybe shortcut us on some things that they should not have done. So in order to ensure the quality, it's better if that architect comes and reports back to the city and not the general contractor. And so part of this increase in change order is because of inflation. When we signed this agreement, some 6+ years ago, the economics were different. We have 7% interest rates now. We have inflation with the cost of materials. And so that explains why we would need to come and do a change order at this time. And so I'm perfectly comfortable with the ask, because there are things that happen, and the city manager stood the ground for the greater good for the citizens of East Point and for the city of East Point by making sure we get a quality development by holding the architect accountable, which will make sure that we're not being shortcutted.
Councilman Renee?
I didn't have anything on this one, Madam Mayor. I was going on to the last one. I'm sorry.
I'm looking at what's attached to the agenda, and it says owner agrees to pay $150,000 for pre-construction services described above. And those services are 10 bi-weekly design coordination meeting hosted and facilitated by Moody Nolan. Coordination of job fair, 1 in person and 1 virtual, to encourage small local minority and female-owned business enterprise participation. Provide budget update at 50% complete construction documents. Provide guaranteed maximum price amendment. Previous guaranteed price amendment, a maximum price amendment, and including change order number 9 is no longer valid. And so that was my question. What was it covering? But I just pulled up the documents because I couldn't get the specific answer. Do you all want this on the agenda or consent? I'm still a little fuzzy, but I'll talk about that offline on how we didn't contemplate these specific things that were listed and how or did we pay Winter Johnson $150,000?
No, Madam Mayor. No, they have not been paid. No.
Consent or agenda? All right. Discussion on integrity of 2023 election. Councilmember Renee.
Madam Mayor, I've had some calls in regards to the integrity of the 2023 municipal election. And also the ACLU has also, I don't know how to say it. They also have been like in communications or talking in reference to the East Point 2023. And there are some concerns, but I don't want to offstep or say anything that's inappropriate. So is it okay if the city attorney, I don't know if he's abreast of a lot of the details in reference to the 2023 municipal election, but if he could kind of guide us to make sure that we're saying the right thing.
Councilmember Renee, thank you. I had an opportunity to get to some of those calls as well. I would rather talk about this in the executive session based on the fact that it's potential litigation. I did have an opportunity to talk to the former assistant director of legal affairs for the Secretary of State and the executive director of the Board of Election Commission for the United States, excuse me, to get some information on how we probably should proceed. And I'm happy to share that with you all in executive session, but I don't think this is the proper venue.
So I will give an update that I received while in the meeting from Fulton County on the recount that they did today on every election held in Fulton County. And for East Point, prior to election day, there were 12 total voters. I think I said this at the last meeting, that cast incorrect ballots. 6 of those were in Ward A, 3 were in Ward B, 2 were in Ward C, and 1 was in Ward D. And based on the recount, they said we'll be receiving a memo tomorrow. The total for the entire election after the recount is 16 votes. I'm not sure of the ward breakdowns for those, but they have recounted and gone through every ballot for all of the elections in the county. And so I'm not sure what the discussion will be in executive session. Of course, that will be a confidential discussion, but publicly, based on their recount, is 16 ballots or 16 voters total for the East Point municipal election. And that's for all 4 wards. total, I don't know the breakdown of the 16. And we should be getting a memo tomorrow. I think they said sometime tomorrow or the next day. Councilmember Robertson.
I'm going to yield if this goes to the executive session because I didn't want to make it a public discussion, but I feel that discussion needs to take place.
All right, the last item is senior holiday lunch. So AARP has reached out again. Oh, I didn't see you before. Councilmember Butler.
No problem. Madam Mayor, I do think that this is important. I do remember my council colleague and I tried very hard to have some council communication about voting and voting in the right area. And it was funny, we didn't get a budget to do that, nor were we allowed to even communicate with the residents about the importance of knowing where you vote and trying to share that information with them. And I wanted to put that on record because that's something I know she and I tried to do to really inform the residents of the change of their wards so that they would know.
All right, last item, senior holiday lunch. Last year, AARP donated funds for us to have an event for our seniors in December. They want to do it again. Last year, we did a food truck and had Tri-Cities High School. I can't remember, it was a course, one of their performing arts groups have caroling, and there was some activity here. And so they are willing to and want to partner with the city to do that again. They will provide the funding. Our partnership would to be the location. Last year we did it here at City Hall on, I think it was City Lawn, but it was here at City Hall. So the ask is that we place on consent hosting a partner with AARP to host a senior holiday lunch with the city of East Point in December.
So move.
Oh, consent.
Consent, okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I
Consent.
mean, yeah, we technically could vote tonight, but consent will be good. I'll just make sure she has information. Anybody have any questions? All right, so there was mention of an executive session item. Is there any, as one litigation, legal?
That's correct. That's correct, Madam Mayor.
One personnel.
None for me, Madam Mayor.
All right, so this is executive session for one legal and one personnel. Can I get a motion? For, you gotta say for what? Motion to recess into executive session for one legal and two personnel. Their second still stand.
Yes.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. We're in recess.
Aye. So moved.
It's been properly second. And okay, you did the second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. All right, so I'd like to, somebody make a motion to adjourn.
Madam Mayor, Madam Pro Tem, I make a motion